We should be live now.
Alright, sweet.
Yep.
Let me pull up the chat. There you go. Chat. You should really get like an animated bounce screen like Noodles has.
What do you mean an animated bounce screen?
Yeah, Noodles has like prepare for like the war or whatever, and it's like animated kind of.
I mean, I have one kind of on screen right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I made that one for him a while ago. Live crazy. Yes, we are live, in fact.
Yeah.
And here, just so.
Yeah.
I'll stream that to you, and then you basically tell me whenever you want me to like do like the typical next slide, please.
Yep. Full screen at like present mode, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Let's just wait for people to pour into the chat a little bit more. Did you add everybody in your server?
Yeah, I did. You know, I should also do is it's easy on. Might have some other help. Might send this to.
Tweet it out so I can retweet it.
Oh yeah, true. That's a bad idea. Alrighty. Let's well, first I'm going to. Now we hang. Do-do-do. Alrighty. Let's see here. Hashi's live. What a wonderful day.
Yeah. Stream with Noodles this week, and I'm streaming with you.
Yep.
Gotta get Pins to have me on a stream at some point.
Yep. But he only goes live whenever he's playing games anyway, so.
I play a game with Pins, so I'll figure something out. I'm waiting for your tweet so I can retweet it.
Yeah, one sec.
So someone DM me like right before the stream starts, right?
Yeah.
And they like just tell me some bullshit. I'm not even gonna like what's their opinion. I'm like, oh, that's stupid, you know?
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh, I knew you'd say that. I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, it's kind of like objectively wrong, right? And like they get really pissy about it, and now they're like, I doubt you even know anything. I'm like, oh, cool. Like I don't really care.
All right, just
yeah. And right now they're like, are you gonna try to prove me wrong? It's like, no, I don't really care about you. You're a bottom feeder. I'm literally gonna call him a bottom feeder. You're a window licker. Like I don't care, dude.
Yep.
I'm literally typing out bottom feeder right now, chat.
Yep.
Actually, I should probably quote tweet it. Undo repost. Quote. They don't know what bottom feeder means. All right, I'm just gonna let them faster in my DMs. Bro, it's almost 12 in the morning. Why'd you choose this time? Well, it's actually like 3 p.m. for me, professional hater.
Also,
and it's not. And I woke up at like noon. because I was up till like 4 I was up till 4 in the morning.
Also, it's currently 12 p.m. for me, so
Yeah.
so it's in the middle of the day right now.
And I'm not trying to like dog on anybody, especially not Surfbone here, but it's like I don't think we get the same people in chat every time, so I don't think we really have a demographic to be like, all right, we got to stream it too.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, I would have to check a few things, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I just feel like this is like the most optimal time to do it, and we don't know how long this is going to inevitably take, but this might be quite a long stream at the very least.
Yep.
So we'll definitely
Yeah.
see how this
I mean,
goes.
I've given the presentation my cat a few times, and the issue is that like I could like run through it, but I know there's going to be questions, comments, concerns, all that shit.
Mm-hmm.
So
Funny how on the complete opposite end of the world it's 12 a.m.
yeah, it's funny that the planet's a sphere, although that might be controversial.
The planet shall fear. All right. Bro, where do you guys live? 12 p.m. and afternoon? Well, I said 12 p.m. I'm in the middle of the United States. In good
In
old.
the literally the middle of the nowhere.
I'm literally in the
Oh.
middle of nowhere, and Hashi's on the East Coast. So, well,
No, I'm
near
in
the
the
East Coast.
Midwest.
Well, like you're close to the East Coast anyway. Like you're in.
Yeah.
Aren't you? You're technically in Eastern Standard Time, right?
Yeah, I'm like I'm in it. Yeah, my state is like one of the last ones in it. Like if you're going west,
Mm-hmm. We started with the
actually,
endless.
we're kind of our own region. Actually, if you think about it, like
Yeah.
yeah, Great Lakes. So it's like
Petra's asking, we starting with the endless potential or the potential Titan? I can't pronounce that word.
Titan Maki. Yeah, it's a hard word. We're starting with the potential. There's a lot of stuff I'm kind of leaving out. Petra, because it's like, oh yeah, here's this one thing they talk about once, and if you read like these 5 other things, you can maybe figure out it's this. And I'm like, all right, now. The video I made was like meant to be inflammatory, so like I act a lot more confident in a lot of those things than I think that you should actually be. Like like people talk about like I'm trying to think of a good Naruto example, but I can't think of one. But yeah. I'd rather not like spend like an hour talking about like all the shit we know that happens like before time.
Mm-hmm.
Like Serpon wouldn't learn
Like,
anything.
like would, like if we're, I guess if we're talking about like Naruto, for example, this is like, do we need to talk about what happened in the second and third war? Like,
No,
it's
it'd
like,
be
oh,
even worse. It'd be like if we were sitting here talking about like what the Otsutsukis were up to for like 1,000 years.
yeah. Though, and like the only thing it's worth mentioning is just like, oh, it's like in the beginning there was Kaguya,
Yeah,
who gave us all
it's
chakra.
yeah, it's kind of like a big yeah. It's a really hard thing to do because like this stuff there is history shit that actually matters, but in Naruto it's not like a lot of it doesn't matter, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
I did see someone do a video though where they were like, "Oh, what actually happened in the third and great or third and second and first Great Ninja Wars or whatever?" I'm like, "Oh, that's neat.
Yeah.
Good for you."
No, you need to do a stream that'll get you views. I don't. This is not the point of that. Like, if it doesn't get that much views, doodles, like
Yeah.
it's just
Man,
kind of
Noodles is
byproduct.
hating.
Yeah. And this is like coming from the guy who was literally being taught how to play Warhammer yesterday.
Mm.
So
Oh, it starts before the Cretaceous Vesper, but we'll get into that.
yeah. Also, I don't have like the same cult following as you, Noodles. So you could be gone for some like for a couple months, and you would still have people who are willing to like just hop into the
Man,
stream.
Noodles is being a hater today.
Yep.
I feel like he channeled his heel energy when he made that video last night early this morning.
Mm-hmm. Plus, I've advertised this stream for a while. Like, What's your opinion
Needless to say, I'm not a hater.
on the One Punch Man fans, the Dragon Ball fanboys who's more toxic? I think it should be pretty obvious it's Dragon Ball.
Yeah.
Like, One Punch Man fans haven't been an issue ever, like for like a couple of years at this point.
Hmm.
Like, you just don't hear about them ever, and the only thing we're hearing about now is just that One Punch Man's kind of going on the down. Is kind of going downhill in terms of like content that's worth watching.
I false advertise my videos all the time. Yeah, you do.
Yep, that is
true.
That is very true.
Yeah, like the copyrighted stream.
Let's gonna do that. Alrighty. Well, I'm at least we're gonna get started.
Yep.
Here.
All right, click present.
Yep. Well, one sec. I'm going to copyright streamer the vid.
The copyright stream, the one that you had to take down and stream again.
All right. Let's see. How do I?
It should just be slideshow. Use slideshow. Start from the beginning. Set it right there. All right. There we go.
And I'm going to now. Hold on. Yep. There we go.
All right. All right. Next slide.
All right.
So we're gonna start off with a basic timeline of the franchise in real life. I'm gonna explain it on like the next slide, I think, but it's kind of really important. These are all like kind of key events. So like Fantasy First Edition was like really, really wonky. Like, like everything had rules, but like nothing had rules in like the traditional sense we think about it, right? And then if you go on to like eventually Fantasy would get like 2 more editions, and then you'd get like a Warhammer 40,000 Rogue Trader, which was very much so like an RPG. Now this isn't the Rogue Trader. If any of you've seen the video game that's out right now, it's not that same game. It's a totally different game. It's so Surfbone, you play D&D with us. You know D&D is very combat oriented, right?
Yeah.
But it's still like an RPG.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Rogue Trader is the opposite. It's a very RPG oriented like combat game.
Okay.
Like it had a dungeon master. It had all these like wacky rules for like turning and stuff. It's just a very wacky game. And then eventually we'd go on. Not much would really be developed till we get to like 3rd edition, where we have this big shift in aesthetics, where instead of being like bright and colorful on the cover, with like black and white interiors, because color printing was it was very expensive back then. Not very expensive, but it wasn't really worth it for a RPG book, right? 3rd edition was like really grimy, dirty, like everything has to be like covered in mud and oil, and it was a very different aesthetic. Same thing with Fantasy 6th edition. That's where they kind of shifted over to. It went from bright and colorful and like your like power metal album cover to everybody's covered in mud. And I'm sure you've heard me bitch about it, but this is like where this idea that like everybody has to be dirty, and this is in part like why I get pissed at Fallout a lot, is because everything's dirty.
Right.
And it's just like, no, people clean stuff. In 2004, we would have Dawn of War releasing, which is a video game. It's a real-time strategy game set in Warhammer 40K. Kind of like StarCraft or something. Actually, I think predates StarCraft, but we're supposed to. And this game was really big, like ridiculously big for the company. It was so big. This was like our first real influx of new players, actually.
Okay.
It was like, and unfortunately, the term is of Dawn of War secondary, which is someone who just played Dawn of War and then tried to act like they were into the game forever.
Oh, like they were into Warhammer the whole time, and they just
was
played Dawn of War.
Yeah,
Kind of like
yeah, and there's a
like I guess like my comparison is like if they like started playing like the Norse mythology God of War games, and then they acted like they just played the previous like Greek games the whole time.
yeah, even worse than that though, because I think those games are still like Dawn of War has a bunch of stuff that's like kind of wonky, and it's like clearly like an exception made for the game.
Yeah.
But it's still a good game. It's still really good. I think it's like $4 usually on G2A. I'd get it. You know, if you're into real time strategy games, it's very good. It runs on anything. The next release is Warhammer 40,000 5th edition, 2008. Um, 5th edition was continuing this index. So from Rogue Trader up through second, but stopping at third, it used kind of like the same rule system. Third rewrote everything. And from third all the way up to eighth, they used the same rule system, like a new one, but like the same one. So like there were armies in this period from 1998 all the way through to 2017 who never got new rules.
Hmm.
So that means if in a very popular example is like Dark Eldar. If you were playing Dark Eldar, you had a book from like the late 90s, while everybody else had a book that was made recently. And if you believe it, people would defend this action. They thought that like, and this is like a belief that there's this term called grognard. It means like old player who's usually really grumpy. They don't ever want to buy anything, and not in the sense like, oh, I'm gonna pirate it. They just don't want new things being made at all.
Weird.
And it's even in and for these people, it even includes when like the old thing was like terrible. They think you should just cope with it.
Mm.
Um, it's a really odd belief. But anyways, fifth edition would also be like a massive timeline rollback because up through third and fourth, they had done campaigns, which is like a bunch of games played around the world, right?
Yeah.
And like whoever wins, you vote, etc. And they would roll back these campaigns. Not saying they're not canon, but like, hey, we might rewrite them, chill out, you know. And we went from 41,000, according to Medusa 5, all the way back to like 40,999 as like the end point. But like we would go before that even. They'd give us like tent poles, kind of. It's a very odd way to write a series, in my opinion. But um, next up we would have Fantasy's 8th edition, which would be its last edition. In 2010. Fantasy was very unpopular at this time. GW had done some fucky stuff. Like, if I recall correctly, they made like you've built a list before, Super. You know how like every unit has a points value,
Right.
like how many you can take. They lowered the points values of like almost everybody, but they so which means you basically need double the troops. But they made boxes like more expensive and shit like that. They made the game like basically unplayable.
Okay.
They did screw it over, but also fantasy was never popular.
Someone said Rip Fantasy will be missed.
Yeah, no, it won't. Fantasy was terrible. It was actually a terrible game. So, but if like I was teaching Noodles 40K yesterday, and he's played it before, but everything you do seems kind of like obvious.
Hmm.
Fantasy has a bunch of bullshit, and it's always had a bunch of bullshit. Like everybody has to like block up into squares, and no, you can't really use terrain either, like because the square bases and shit.
Hmm.
Terrible game. Um, After this, in 2012, we would have Warhammer 40,000 6th edition, which is like the shortest edition, and people consider it to be the worst.
Huh.
But no one really ever has a reason why. It's kind of just a worse version of 7th, and 7th apparently wasn't that bad, but also is bad, depending who you talk to.
Okay. What's like the main difference between those two?
6th and 7th, not much. They're basically the same game.
Okay. Like, did seventh actually add anything, or did
Yeah, but for the worse.
oh for the worse? So you think seventh is worse?
I think they're both really bad. I think it's like one of those like I think the it being a new edition kind of like convinced people, even though they won't want to admit it.
So what was like the big difference between like what sixth and seventh did in comparison to what fifth did?
They added, so there's a bunch of stuff, but a big one's called formations. So like you'd have like an army, right?
Okay.
And you already had to have what was called force organization, which means like you can only have so many HQs and you needed so many troops for it to even be an army, right?
All right.
Now, what we also had was, oh, but if you take like these certain units, you get a buff. So, for instance, if you, I forgot what an actual formation is. So, if someone here is like fluent with 6th edition, I'm sorry, but like let's say you took like a Space Marine captain, you took some Terminators, right? There might be a formation for that, and you get another buff. And at this time as well, vehicles had facings too. So, for instance, if you shot the side of a vehicle, it would have a different armor value than the front of a vehicle. And this mattered because what people would do is they would run these vehicles that were so big, but they weren't considered vehicles. Or like these things that were so big, they weren't vehicles, they were monstrous creatures. And they had wounds still. Because ideally, with like a vehicle, you can get to its weak spot, you know, and that was like a thing you could do. But you can't really do that with a creature. It's just like a normal thing.
Okay.
It like 6th and 7th, because 40k was steadily getting popular at this time. This is like where the idea of like the 40k guy kind of came from, was this era. Well, it was getting popular at the time. This really solidified that like the people who would talk about 40k online never played the game or never read anything.
Okay.
Like, oh, so all the people in let's just say 2013. Let's cut it down the middle, right? They're all talking about stuff from 2008.
Okay.
Cause like that's like the weird cultural momentum that was happening here. It was just lagged. Like it was really weird. And it's still like that, by the way. People still talk about stuff from 2008 like it's new stuff. Like people don't understand that like new stuff is printed. You know, it's really weird.
Right.
Next up we had in 2015 Age of Sigmar. So fantasy finally fucking died, thankfully. Like they killed it off. They had their end times, they killed it off. And they did Age of Sigmar, which basically fixed just about everything with the game, and it's just a much better game overall. In fantasy, if you bought an army, it was dudes in cloth and like cloth, like fabric. Like obviously they're plastic, but like you're painting like fabrics and you're painting skin and also like small guns and stuff. And you have to paint dozens of these dudes, and that's just not welcoming to a newcomer, right?
Hmm.
But in Age of Sigmar, the poster faction are Stormcast. They're people in gold armor. No, like basically no skin, which is very easy to paint, especially for a metallic paint. You just slap that shit on there.
So would you
And
say
it,
like one of like the main draws of like Warhammer in like comparison to like D&D is the ability to buy these figures and create your own army that way?
I think the main draw is that you only need 2 people.
Okay.
Like scheduling is still a pain. I was talking to Noodles about it yesterday. Scheduling is still a pain in the ass. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But you don't need like 6 people to play Warhammer. You only need 2. And also, you don't need a DM either. It's just you and your buddy, and the rules are a lot more airtight too. So like you don't have to worry about like bullshit.
Okay. And you're saying basically why you think what fantasy was doing wrong. You said which one had like the sheath cloth and like skin?
Fantasy, yeah,
Fantasy.
fantasy was totally not Europe, but covered in mud. It was basically the Earth, but not the Earth, with Tolkien races, and everybody's covered in mud because they thought that was cool in like the mid 2000s.
Um someone asked there weren't any elite armies in fantasy.
No, there really weren't. You could have elite builds. Like I think Grail Knights were kind of elite, but yeah, there really weren't. Like like fantasy didn't really like allow you to do what 40k would eventually allow you to do. Like we're gonna get to 8th edition here, but in 8th edition 40k you could run just Dawn Eagle jet bikes. All right. You ran, and this is for custodians, and you ran maybe 9 models for a whole army. Or in 6th edition, which we just passed, and 7th kind of, because like the rules thing, like I talked about, We added Imperial Knights, which we will talk about in this presentation. But Imperial Knights are like a one model army, or like it's kind of two, but you know.
Mm-hmm.
And what that means is that you can spend a lot of time painting up one dude, and it's a big dude, and it's like big swing. You know, you're like playing Godzilla, kind of. It's like it's really
Okay.
fun.
Has there like have you ever came across somebody who just bought the figures and was just too lazy to actually paint them? They just kind of have
Yes,
the
yes,
figure
yeah,
spells.
yeah. Painting actually kind of sucks. I'm be real.
Yeah.
It's like it's very unreal. Like I obviously like the tabletop game, but if you are painting to play the game, you will be disappointed.
Playing just to paint the models.
No, painting to play them.
Oh,
Like,
painting to play them. Okay.
yeah, if you like bought like first of all, never do this. But if you bought 2,000 points, which is going to be at least $1,000 realistically, um, of models, painted them all, like built them, paint them all up, made a list, and then played, you're going to be really disappointed. Like no tabletop game is that good to be worth like that much effort. Like I'm sorry.
Someone.
There's a rule for unpainted minis in 10th. There was a ninth too, but like no one ever really enforces it. It's meant for tournaments. It's meant for like tournament play.
Wait, there was actually a rule for
Yeah,
unpainted.
yeah. So in the so there's well, let's get to eighth here. Eighth introduced three kinds of playing. There's open play, matched play, and narrative play. And ninth would expand on this with Crusade, for narrative, and match play would get more rules. But basically, in match play, it's like, all right, make your armies. Like they have to give you a list because in eighth edition, and I'm not even joking, this actually happened. Someone thought that if you were playing the game and you were up on like victory points, like you had captured more objectives, right? You could just say I resign, I concede, and you win the game because you had more points.
Oh, okay.
Like
But
imagine you're up on kills in Call of Duty and you leave the game. Does that mean you win? Like no, right?
oh, okay, okay. Now I understand.
Yeah, yeah. But you want to know something funny, Surfbone?
Yeah,
It wasn't actually against the rules to do that.
it wasn't.
No. So
Just
and
I
this gets
concede because I have more point. Oh, I see. Is it like kind of like when a UFC fighter kind of aims to just get more points and like win the round in the most lame way possible? But like
yes,
no
but
one
it
is
would
it.
literally be like if the UFC fighter tapped out, and then it's literally what Chael Sonnen did, where he said that when he tapped out against Anderson Silva, that meant he just lost the round. But except for these people didn't
Oh.
think you lost anything. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
and this is another design philosophy change, by the way, is because and it from in fifth edition. Well, actually, from third, if we're being real, from third all the way to the end of seventh, and even into eighth a little bit, the expectation was if you were playing Warhammer 40K, you had been playing it for years and you would make it work.
Okay.
And so there were units that would be sold without the options.
Like what?
Now, so Space Marines all carry bolters, right? But the rules say that one of them can actually carry a special weapon, like a las cannon, a rocket launcher, something. And so let's say you model him with a rocket launcher. Cool, he has a rocket launcher. Well, 5th edition gave everybody grav guns. Well, where's the grav guns? Oh, just go find them somewhere. Go, you know.
Okay.
And there's another unit Space Marines have called a Devastator Squad, where everybody has one of these big weapons, like a las cannon, rocket launcher, whatever, right? It doesn't come with 5 of every weapon. It comes with 2, which means there are 3 dudes that you need to figure out another weapon option for. Now, this triggers a lot of people because a lot of people think like competitive play is the boogeyman, but the meta has traditionally been las cannon devastators. That's been the meta for years, right?
Forbidden
And
Sister. Where's my plasma cannon enthusiast?
yeah, plasma is good. Don't get me wrong, but plasma is good. But uh, we when you go to make your Lascannon Devastators, the expectation was you had already bought in like 8 squads of tactical Marines that came with the Lascannon. You just have to put it on there. But what you don't realize, Surfbone, is that means that you had to play the game for a while to build a full unit, right?
Yeah.
And as we got into 8th edition, which was the biggest influx of new players ever, this was very frustrating to all of them. Especially because like the already existing like ecosystem of people who would sell their bits online, like they'd buy a kit, sell the extra bits, was now strained by all these new people who would listen to the older players who would tell them go on whatever website and buy the bit. And so as 8th went on and into 9th, the policy became no model, no rules. So if your model wasn't being made currently, or the options weren't with the model, the rules would get cut.
Huh.
And as we went over, a lot of these rules had existed since 1998. And so there's a lot of shit that was like, oh yeah, that miniature only ever existed once in 2004. It's getting, no more. I'm gonna grab a soda. My throat's kind of dry. Give me 2 seconds here.
Yep. Oh wow, I did not expect Warhammer. Well, this was an idea that was kind of like in the back of my mind before, where it's just like, at some point, it would just be worthwhile to kind of learn about Warhammer. And I like came across this one streamer called Fiznum, where he did a 10-hour live stream where he taught somebody who had not played Five Nights at Freddy's before the entire chronology of the series, and he did like a little slideshow with it. So I initially thought, hey, why don't we just do that, but with Hashi teaching me about Warhammer, we basically do the exact same thing. And then anybody who wants to try to get into Warhammer could also just watch this stream and learn the chronology of Warhammer from somebody who's actually read the books and all the novels and stuff. So that's kind of the whole idea of why this stream's
In
even
hindsight, soda's probably not the best idea, but whatever, we're rolling with it.
I got a ghost right next to me.
Yeah.
Old cherry limeade.
All right. So as we were saying, all these rules had existed since 1998, and people got very angry.
Yep.
But like, there were so many new players or people who just like never liked options in that way that it didn't matter. It was a non-factor.
Mm-hmm.
And 9th came around, and 9th was again like the most successful launch in history, like basically doubling 8th numbers. And same policy. And so it was really easy to get into the game. Like really easy.
Yep.
Next slide.
All right.
Yeah, so there are different eras of the game, and it kind of goes from like first up to kind of third through like 7th, and then 8th and forward. And it's just a really easy way to like be like, all right, in this era they did this, but then, and there's just a lot of factors in these editions that kind of lump them together into one thing. And it's a lot of like GW's attitude on certain things. GW standing for Games Workshop, the people who make this game. A lot of stuff like that. Like a lot of stuff. It's more of like an ease of categorization. Next slide.
All right.
So in Old Hammer, which is like the first and second up to third. Like when I say up to, it means everything besides third. Like I said, very RPG war game. GW actually had the UK license for D&D. And so this was a lot of the miniatures they were making for that swapped over. And like I mentioned on the slide, this is kind of the problem with having a big text slide is I'm just kind of reading off it and it feels kind of lazy. But the lore was very experimental. They were throwing everything at the wall, seeing what stuck. There were so many things mentioned back then that get brought up now, where it's like, oh, it's a cool throwback, but it's not a throwback. They didn't think it worked back then, but it works now because people think it's cool. For instance, the Horus Heresy, this big myth, was just an excuse for why a box that had the same models for both sides. That game was called Titanicus, and you basically, instead of like the models being bigger, it was smaller scaled models of quote unquote big titans, but you had the same Titans on both sides, and people are like, well, why? Why are they the same Titans? And it's like, oh, well, there was a civil war back in the day, and that's how the Horus Heresy started.
Okay.
Yeah. Next slide. Midhammer or Middle Hammer is the middle era.
Hammer.
It is very mid. It is very mid. Now, people on like 4chan are like, oh, well, this is before mid meant bad, but like, it was mid. Like, even back then, so this is like where we get into like the various lies of the community, right? Where people are like, if you ever played or like were in the community during any point in time, Warhammer sucked. It was never the best game. It never will be the best game. It's like this unique area it sits in. But even back then, you had people playing other games that would be like, oh, I just play Warhammer because it's popular, but really I'd like to be playing. And then it's some game where you actually play as like World War II Nazis, like every time.
Yep.
I'm not even joking, and people in chat will like probably fight with me about this if anybody actually cares, but everybody who plays a historical, which is like where you're actually playing like in World War II, because it's always World War II, they all play Germans. Every time, dude. It's like wild. And same way on War Thunder, people, they're German mains all over the place. It's just actually crazy. So, like I said, cover art went from bright and colorful, I think I talked about that already, to black and white. Warhammer was big enough that GW actually had to like produce models for its games. I mentioned the campaign thing. Oh yeah, they started making side games as well. Like we had Aeronautica, where you played as planes only. We had Inquisitor, which was a larger scale miniatures, like doing this like World of Darkness shit. Yeah, Midhammer is like early 2000s. It's 3rd edition, which is like 1998 all the way through to 2017.
Okay.
They'd make like loads of side games like that really wouldn't do that well because 40K wasn't that big in comparison to support that like other models like that. Forge World, which is their resin producing branch. So in order to make a plastic model, you need to make a steel mold. So like you have to like take steel and use a CNC machine to carve out like the negative of what you want to make, right? And then you have to inject plastic into it under pressure, and then it will make the model. Those steel molds cost about $10,000 a piece.
Oh damn.
Yeah. So what Forge World did was we're going to use resin, which you could make a resin model right now if you wanted to. And they don't need the same shit. And it's very cheap, and they would basically support the game by making resin models that like the harder core fans would want, but then also not want because they'd make a bunch of bullshit too. They quickly became full of themselves like very fast. And then they also made Black Library, which would publish novels for like the verse. So like we would like expand it. In like 3rd edition, and like a lot of like old fans will admit this, in 3rd edition the lore was very bare bones. Very bare bones. But as you got novels and you got RPG books that would come out, because there are RPGs set in 40K, obviously. You would actually get more explanation. And it's why if you've ever read the core rulebook nowadays, they mention stuff that only happened in the novels, and they mention stuff that only happened in an RPG book. Because all that shit was the cool stuff.
Okay.
As I mentioned, oh yeah, Chapter House. So, around 5th, kind of 6th edition-ish, GW was like, all right, this is a Space Marine, right? And this is a Space Marine on a bike. But you could put any Space Marine on a bike, effectively. But they didn't sell models for every Space Marine on a bike. But this company, Chapter House, did, and they called him Space Marine on Bike. And the issue that they had was that you can't actually copyright the word Space Marine.
Oh.
At least not as like a generic branding term. Copyrights you have to be very specific with your copyright.
Mm-hmm.
And same thing with Dark Eldar, Orc. You can't copyright those terms.
No.
GW ended up winning the lawsuit for other reasons. It's legal speak. But after that lawsuit, they clamped down because back then they would just make rules, and they had no plans of ever making a model for it. Like there were Tyranid units back then. They admittedly were never going to make a model for. They were just like, all right, players, figure it out.
Okay.
Yeah. And most lore tubers hype up the end of this era, and they assume that like nothing ever moved. But the campaigns that we mentioned a few slides ago, they were pushing the timeline forward every time. They were current events when they were happening.
All right.
Like here, let me run it past you. If we're doing a campaign and you were able to change the outcome, how is that not a current event unless everybody's just pretending they're going to retcon it if the wrong person wins? Right?
Okay.
But people thought that like, oh, we're just at like a minute to midnight, and like if anything happens, oh, it's all over. It's like no, that was never how it was. Literally never. Next slide.
All right.
We're New Hammer era, which is 2017 going forward. Every rulebook is in color. They kind of started doing that with Sixth, but every rulebook's in color. GW actually treats Warhammer like an IP now. It's not just some like quirky thing. Everything is very licensed, very legally regulated. They can no longer pretend to be a small company and bitch about stuff. Novels that aren't for Imperium being made, like we have Necron novels now, Eldar novels now, Orc novels now, Gene Stealer cult novels now. It's great. Back then, it was basically all Space Marine novels, unfortunately.
Only
Like
Space Marines.
yeah, or like Imperial Guard, maybe Chaos, like, and not even like demons, like Chaos Space Marines, and there might be a demon in the book. Forge World got put in the cuck shed, thank God.
Wait,
because
what got pulled? Oh, Forge World.
Yeah, so like I said, Forge World started to really get an ego, and they were like, they were making the heresy at this point, but they were like, oh well, all the Space Marine legions, which we'll get into, they all had bodyguards, right? Like they all had like a bodyguard unit for like their Primarch, right? Like maybe fucking Mortarion has his Death Shroud Terminators. And they follow him around. They're supposed to be like his bodyguard, right? But the issue was that 40k already did that for Blood Angels. They're like, yep, that Sanguinary Guard, it's a thing. Forge World hated it, so they avoided giving it models and rules for as long as possible. So they wanted their own slice of the pie they could do whatever with, effectively.
So Forge World is one of those companies that makes these models, right?
Yeah, they're a part of GW, but they're like a separate division.
Okay. So wait, who
it's
ends
not as
up
big.
replacing them again?
No one. They basically were just sidelined. They're now
Oh.
they're eventually broken down, but now they're just people who make resin in some other games.
Okay.
This newfound popularity, and like I said, the games that it's most popular, allowed for like the specialist games I talked about that never worked, like Necromunda or Epic. Necromunda is like gangsters on this one planet all fighting. They're all quirky. Epic is you play bigger battles but with smaller miniatures. So a Space Marine is one model on one base. Like the base is a circular thing he stands on. Epic is like 5 dudes on one base, but it's the same size base.
Okay.
And the miniatures are smaller, which means on the same table you can play a bigger battle, and it's like the thing. Unfortunately, at this time we'd get a lot of slop mobile games, though. So.
Oh, mobile games? Warhammer
Yeah, there's a lot.
Games?
There's a lot of really terrible ones. A lot of them got taken down because like the licenses expired. But yeah, next slide. Yep. Yeah. Why does this matter? So in universe chronology, so like what happens first doesn't line up with IRL timing. Like the stuff in for instance, like I mentioned here on the slide, one of the first short stories written within Visions of Heresy is an anthology that comes out way after the first Heresy novel. Mechanicum, a novel released in like 2008, shows us the Emperor fighting the Void Dragon. And this was written before the Void Dragon was revealed to be a shard of itself. Like when all the Necron Tan were sharded. Early books would give like overarching details while later books would gloss over them. So like, for example, an earlier book might say like the ducks of the pond.
Okay.
Like a later book will be like, some say that there are ducks in the pond, but we can't be for sure. But it's like, you told us there were ducks in the pond. Like, it's like this like fake mystery bullshit. It's like they don't know what they have in front of them.
Okay.
Uh, Forbidden asked, are you going to cover TTS? No. No. Next slide.
I was about to ask what that is, but
Oh, it's text to speech device. It's like Dragon Ball Z abridged, but more annoying.
oh. Okay.
There's a book where the fight is described. Yeah, it's Mechanicum. Go read it. So what order are we using? We're basically using in-universe chronology with a bias towards newer sources. So like we're not going to talk about Eye of Terror because that kind of got rewritten by Gathering Storm. Nothing events or the antics of particular characters aren't going to be talked about. So I'm not talking about Vrax because Vrax doesn't matter like at all. Like
what's
I forgot to
Vrax?
grab the
Like,
screen.
what's
So Forge World would make campaign books, and it would start them off with a literally a paragraph where it says nothing in this book matters.
okay?
To the old fans, like, yes, this is my dudes fighting in a campaign that ultimately won't matter. It's like, all right, then I'm not going to read it. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, who cares?
Right.
Yeah, but if something's important, like Lion, Son of the Forest, we will eventually cover it in like Stream 5 when we get up to date.
Right.
Because I'm not going past the heresy in this stream. That would be way too much. Next slide. Yeah, so this is the part where I have to recap a video I already made. So this is going to be fun, chat. So we're obviously starting like before time, like several before times here. Or like we're starting at like the actual creation of the mythos here. Next slide. So this happens first. This is the creation of literally everything. And obviously this poem goes on to like kind of explain like chaos would get bigger because like universes get eaten. But this is the actual beginning of everything.
The literal
And at this
beginning.
point in time, like the universe and the warp were supposed to be the same size. And this universe we would call the prime reality because it's just easier to talk about that way. It's not really like an official term, but it's like a lot of people who talk about the warp and the universe will be like, oh, well, the warp is the prime reality because it's bigger, but it wasn't always that way. So a good way to refer to this first universe is to call it the prime reality.
All right.
This is a poem by Teclis. It's very, very flowery, but it's basically saying that like they were made equal to each other, and then as one grew, the other grew, and as the other grew, the other grew. So
Okay.
it's a very simple thing.
And
Next slide.
I see we have the good old endless potential mentioned
Yeah,
here
yep.
right times.
That is the start of everything.
All right.
So in the Prime universe, the old ones eventually cataloged everything and began to master the Enuncia. The Enuncia is like it's almost like a shout in Skyrim. You're like speaking this primordial language, and it bends like all of reality to your will. It's like explicitly manipulating the endless potential. So like if you speak someone's name, you have like ultimate control over them effectively. But like the issue is that like you can't just like memorize someone's true name traditionally. Like every part of it is like this ever-changing thing, and you need to make like when Ahriman does it, he has to have like these containers in his like thought realm because he had to make like a realm for his thoughts, right?
Hmm.
And they're like these conceptual containers in his head where he separates each like syllable of someone's true name, and he just combines them when he uses it. Because if he remembered it combined, it would change.
All
It's
right.
like this really potent but like balanced ability at the same time. Next slide. These are the old ones. They're frog people.
Frog people.
They are look at him. He's a frog.
Yeah.
He's a fat frog.
Yeah. What is there? Are they just called the old ones? Is that what their race is called, or are they called something else?
Well, people call them the old ones. They are the old Slan because they're just older Slan, and the Slan are frog people.
The Slan.
Slan, yeah, the frog people.
Yeah.
We have not talked about the Emperor yet. We're getting there. We will get there.
Rivet.
Yeah, are you underwhelmed? This is your godlike entity. They're frog people. They're frog people. Next slide.
Yoshi, someone said.
So eventually, the old ones would like burn paths through the warp to other universes. And this is what would be called the web lane. Also, there's a 1A statement there. As you'd imagine.
Oh yeah, I see. Chaos matter encroaching on the trans-dimensional pathways.
Yep. Like acts like and for those of you who don't know in chat, this is like kind of like the like tone of the verse. It's just random 1A statement till you end up with 60. Like
Yeah.
that's just how it be.
So
Next slide.
well,
Oh,
how would you describe, say, like for people who don't understand the warp, is like how does that compare with like hyperspace in Star Wars?
So like hyperspace in Star Wars, like barring like some like niche legend shit, it's just like a like them just using another place to like kind of bypass the universe to go FTL.
Yep.
The warp is this place like completely unbound by physics and like superior to space, so you can just do whatever in there. And part of that is being able to move faster than light. But also because of that, you're also able to like arrive before you left or arrive in a different universe. If you remember how I mentioned Titanicus like 2 minutes ago ish.
Yeah.
In that game, there's a statement where a warp missile can end up in any of a million universes.
Okay.
Like, this like multiversal outer stuff from the beginning. It's always been this way. Like from the get-go.
Alrighty.
Next slide. Yeah. So the Slan would have like because they're in the multiverse and they're finding out new concepts, right? This would kind of cause like the warp to start expanding as they would become aware of new things and like these ideas can flow into the warp. The warp would expand in turn. They all like it says there. They also start terraforming and like what's it called uplifting other planets as well.
Oh, so it's like
Next slide.
so is it like the warp is sentient essentially?
It is sentience.
Oh, it is. It is sentience. Okay.
You are sentient because of the warp. Yeah. Next slide.
Oh, okay.
So the old ones actually had gods. They were called the gods of law. They were very rigid beings of like material bullshit. And there's in like older lore they talk about the cycle of law and chaos. This is like a Michael Moorcock thing. And what it was presenting is that because the old ones were so like law oriented, it like turned the warp chaos. So it's like if you kept giving someone like Coke one day until they decided to drink Pepsi because they're tired of Coke.
Someone was referring to how like in a previous slide it said that the old ones traversed continents in minutes, and that doesn't sound like a measurable speed.
Oh, like they can do that.
Yeah.
I mean, like it says they do, like they're riding their chariots and they would just go to another continent. That's because this is from fantasy where there's really only 2 portals.
Oh, so
Because
this
it's
is yeah. Someone said something about like asked if the slan are also from fantasy.
yeah, the land we're in fantasy because like fantasy is like this very specific world fated to be. Like it has like this very like important fate to it. And in that world they had like like portals that would allow them to just go to like the other side of the world. But it's one planet, so it really,
Mm-hmm.
aren't the gods of law non-canon? The scan on there is from this year.
This is from
So I
this
mean,
year, so this is new information, kind of.
yeah, it's like a elaboration, yeah.
Okay. So at the time this
Everything old is new and everything new is old.
okay. So wait, the old
Like
ones
the
had their
people the
so it said the old ones had their own gods. So, but the
yeah.
old, but they're essentially. I'm trying to think. So would you say they're kind of like the lion turtles from like Avatar, that they just kind of just been around, but they're not exactly like the gods or whatever?
No, so the term god is like debated upon in verse. Like what is a god, right?
Okay.
And in fantasy where they have this land, they talk about how the difference between a lesser god and like a soul is nothing. So in reality, if you're just strong enough, you're technically a god,
Okay.
right? And then you can categorize them as people who are like fueled by like elemental stuff. So like for instance, if you're fueled by war, you would be an elemental war god. You're fueled by like elemental stuff. But if you're an ascendant god, you're just a mortal who got really strong.
Mm-hmm.
And those aren't mutually exclusive either. But in fantasy, the Slan are not considered gods, but the old ones are. Because the Slan are like everybody's seen a Slan. They're kind of mundane, you know.
Yeah. Also,
The Slan also got worse over time because like the old ones gave birth to the first generation who are really strong. They gave birth to the second generation who are almost as strong, etc., etc., etc.
Okay, so some people are still confused about the whole
Continent.
continents scale.
Yep.
Like, is
So
it outer or the universe size? What are they?
so the pathways that go through the warp are outer, right? But these like this like network, it's on fantasy. It's just connecting points on one planet. But it also does like there are localized portions of it's called the webway. There are localized portions, and then there are portions that reach out into other universes and shit. So, for instance, in 40k, Craft World Eldar have webway portals that lead to other parts of a same ship. But then there are other parts of the webway that lead to other parts of a galaxy, and even to other universes.
Okay.
It's like how you have like a sidewalk outside, but then there's also a street that leads down to like your store. But then there's a highway, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not that these continents are any some monumental size. It's just one of the pathways in which they travel through. It's just like that's just like one pathway through the warp, essentially.
Yeah, yeah. It's because like the warp doesn't have distance, so you can just like you can walk in and walk 2 steps, and you walk like 100 meters or whatever.
So wait, the old like the Slans had their own gods that they
Yes,
worship. Like
yeah, or created even.
they
They were just
created their own
governed.
gods.
We'll get to that. Yeah, they did.
Okay. All right.
Next slide. So the old ones kind of had a 9/11 here because like a mortal decided to murder another mortal in cold blood, and this like permanently tainted the warp forever.
Oh, a Slan killed like another Slan? Or
No, like it's supposed to be like a human, like Cain and Abel, but we don't know if it's actually
Oh.
human.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, killing had happened before, but this is like the first cold-blooded murder of like a new race, presumably. And this
Okay.
created a very powerful demon and also tainted the warp forever as being chaotic.
Oh, so no type of any sort of like major violence occurred as a result of this. No murder occurred until this one. Like no type of
Yeah,
violence
like this
until
is a
this one.
cold-blooded murder by a sentient creature.
Has Hashi ever seen that video of a guy calling Warhammer fascist media?
I have, yeah, it was terrible. Someone said something about monotheistic religion. Monotheistic religion's really boring. Like if you're looking at like all this cool stuff about frog people and you're like, man, where's Yahweh? I don't know what to tell you, Chief.
Where's Yahweh?
Yeah. Next slide.
What's the Oh, someone said, what's the explanation for Celeste being bound in fantasy but fine in 40k?
That's an Age of Sigmar. Age of Sigmar is after 40k. It's like a different part of the cycle.
Okay, so we'll eventually get to that, kind of.
That's like stream 8.
Oh, okay.
It's gonna be a while. Next slide. So and that's why I just talking about cycle. So like a universe would like birth Khorne, who's the first chaos god, and then that universe would either end or just get destroyed, whatever. And then another race in another universe would birth Tzeentch, and then eventually Nurgle, and we would have the 3 oldest chaos gods born. And each in universe is all way before 40k. Like this is like before time even starts in the 40k universe. We've already birthed 3 chaos gods.
So, well,
Because like it's like explained that like it's this fate of all sentient creatures to at least try to birth a chaos god. Sentient psychic creatures, mind me. And so we can like go back because we're told this about Slanesh and the Dark King, but you can obviously deduce this back to, well, then who made Nurgle, right? But there's no time or race in the 40k universe to do that, so it probably happened in another one. Because we've already kind of established a multiversal nature for both Chaos and the old ones. And their shenanigans.
Okay, so some guy said I'm not looking for the Christian god in Warhammer. Just a bit sad that they don't have multiple words for different kinds of gods, except saying X god.
Well, we have like we have Ascendant and Elemental, and then there's also like you have like your pantheons, but like there's not really like a special like he's a goober god.
Mm-hmm.
So from the start, 40k was already screwed. Yep, the game was rigged from the start.
It was rigged from the start because time hasn't even started, and somebody
Yep.
decided they wanted to kill somebody else, and now the warp is forever tainted, and now demons are born.
Yep. Well, demons were already born anyways. The term demon isn't inherently bad. There's a quote by Lorgar where he says, the term angel and demon widely depend on where you're standing at one point in time.
All right. Is my mic better for anybody else?
It'd been funny if you were muted the whole time.
Yeah. I believe. Is my mic sounding all right? Maybe I just gotta get closer.
Yep.
But, so it said.
Anyways.
Yeah, some species in some other universe before 40k would birth corn.
Yep. Korn is the god of war, bloodshed, murder. Kind of murder, but not really. He's about honor, really. He's actually like a fairly honorable god.
So wait, so when the first death occurred, corn was born?
No.
Oh,
The
okay.
different demon was born.
Oh, just a different.
So the chaos gods are runaway cascades. So how the warp works, or Sea of Souls as it was before someone murdered someone for some reason, is that if you believed something, it would eventually become true somewhere.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But the issue is that if enough people start feeling an emotion like anger, rage, war, you start to make this like vortex. It's like if you're in a pool and you all get to like a circular pool and you all get to the outside and start walking one direction to make a whirlpool. Eventually, even when you stop, it keeps going, right?
Okay.
Right, Surfbone?
Yeah. Okay.
And so all these people were fighting and fighting and fighting, and it just became a runaway cascade. It got too strong for itself, and now Korn always exists because he
Okay.
keeps getting fueled as well.
Yeah. Someone said, "Don't the chaos gods become intemporal from the moment they exist at one point in time?"
Yes, yep, they do.
Okay.
And obviously this happens with Zinch and eventually Nurgle too, where enough stuff happens that fuels them. Like Zinch is fueled by change, magic, mutation, that even hope. The Chaos Gods do have positive aspects, but that's because they like mantle those aspects. To put it to you this way, Chaos is where all concepts are from, effectively. And because we end up with 4 of them, each one is a fourth of them, which means they're going to have positive aspects as well as negative ones as well.
Okay.
But they're ultimately negative forces. Next slide.
All right.
So this is a book where some of this information is from. So the old ones would use these spider spaceships, I'm not even joking, to seed life into the 40k universe. Now, not every species is made by them, but the Eldar are specifically made by them. And it's theorized that humans probably were too, but it's not actually confirmed. This gets into like the Bible allegory, because there's a big like biblical meta story in Warhammer. But basically, these people assume that Genesis must be literal, and then they basically find out it kind of was because the old ones did it.
So is that whole war in heaven created the chaos gods just fanon?
Fan canon, yes, yep, it is. Next slide. That book, Dominion Genesis, by the way, I read it for a completely different reason. It just happened to start talking about the old ones. I was like, oh shit. That
Okay.
was another one of those books I read like 400 pages of for one statement. So eventually, Eldar would have their gods implanted into their race as thought weapons by the old ones. The old ones are like, all right, you guys are pretty strong psychically. We're going to make you thought weapons. As you see there, they became thought weapons. I forgot to mention it, but by the time 40k starts, the other Chaos gods were kind of asleep. They weren't really doing much.
They were just big old catnap, sleeping.
Yeah, it's like, all right, we're going to sleep for a little bit.
Sleep. So wait, which ones would you say are awake at this point?
Uh, Basically none of them. They're all kind of asleep.
Oh, so they were just born. They were just kind of just sleeping.
Well, they would like do stuff, but like chaos kind of like burns itself out for periods of time sometimes. Like it'll do a bunch of stuff in like one universe and be like, all right, we're gonna go do something else somewhere else.
Okay. Was it one of?
And
Are they kind of like the the Cthulhu mythos gods where they do stuff even while they're sleeping?
yeah, they still like demons would still appear and stuff, but like this is like a very it's like kind of different. And like no like we as readers kind of know, but like in universe you would never be able to tell. It's like a retroactive, like, oh, I guess they were asleep back then, weren't they?
Ah. Okay.
Yeah, but as you see, the Eldar gods are literally thought weapons.
Okay. So like thought weapons, as in like what do they?
Gods that like because gods are fueled by thoughts, right?
Oh, okay.
So like they literally are like, all right, start thinking of this, and you're gonna have a god now, and it's gonna fight for you.
Oh,
Next
okay.
slide.
The battle was long, and the first ones were now few, and their numbers dwindled. So too did their influence over the young creations. Without the wisdom, I saw the elders evolve from sentient weapons into living gods, the first true gods of the atrium,
Immaterium.
in Immaterium. How I wept when the Eldar embraced them as such.
Yep. It's because some people don't actually consider the chaos gods to be gods. Like they do, they're just like, no, you're just like a storm or nothing,
Ah,
you know? Because like this is a character who is in fantasy who just like looked into 40k because they're canon to each other and always have been. And so their gods are in fantasy, the classical gods are very personal. They're like when you like use like a blessing, you can see the avatar of the god if you have like a what's called like magic sight.
okay.
It's a much different experience. Next. Oh yeah, right. Yep. So Elder mythology is really complex. Like there's a bunch of stuff about how like this guy did this thing or this god did this thing. But the issue is that it's entirely possible that like when we're told that like the Eldar made their gods or had them implanted, whatever, that could have happened in another universe. Because like Eldar aren't unique; they're elves in other universes. So it begs the question: did Eldar mythology happen in 40k, or did it happen elsewhere, and they just got told about it? You know.
Okay.
And part of this proof is that the Elven Eldar, same thing, gods are cyclical beings. So Cain eventually does get shattered, but he'll eventually come back,
Like shattered,
but
as in like what happened?
turned into shards.
Like
I'm
turned
gonna
to
grab
shards.
more water here. Second.
Okay. Alrighty. Don't worry, guys. Some stuff I'm absorbing, some stuff I'm not. It's an interesting experience to be learning about so much in so little time. So if anyone's confused, I'm there with you. I'm still trying to absorb all that I can. Do do do. By the way, to everybody else, am I sounding okay still? Just making sure. We're kind of just on break for a little bit. Hashi getting some water. Some water.
All right. My apologies, chat. For the record, I already kind of had a sore throat going into this, so I'm trying to drink a lot of water here.
Yep. Somebody asked, don't Eldar have a slur for humans?
It's not technically a slur, but it's used like a slur. And I would give an example of that in real life, but I don't want to get called racist. So,
Okay. All right. So we
yeah, next slide. All right, so we get to this thing called the War in Heaven, and now there are multiple of them. And like this quote kind of implies, it kind of plays into the cycle thing, where there have been dozens of wars in heaven that all kind of blend together. And the War in Heaven is also a biblical reference too.
okay.
So this is like where the obfuscation kind of starts, not by the community, but kind of by the work itself, because it's like, all right, we're told about this thing, but when did it happen? And you basically don't know.
So we don't know exactly when the War of Heaven occurred or the war
Well,
started.
which war? That's the point.
Um.
Which one?
Oh, so there have been multiple wars in heaven, and they're just kind of like scattered.
Yeah, and like there are two that we do know what happened in 40K. One of which is like the Elder Gods getting pissy at each other. And the other is what we're about to get to. But even with those, it's like they'll talk about them interchangeably.
Okay.
So it's like, yeah, it's just it's a clusterfuck. Next scan. Slide. So there's this race called the Necrontyr, which the old ones didn't make, which would have like super cancer, and they would sell their souls to the Catan and declare war on the old ones for being kind of a pain in the ass and not helping them, along with a bunch of other stuff you do when you're like beyond scarcity, right?
Okay.
The old ones would make the Quarks, which are now the Orcs, and it'd be this big slugfest.
So these guys made orcs. Oh
The
no,
old ones, the
the
frog people.
the frog people, the Slans made the orcs.
Yeah, they were called the Quarks at the time, and they were a lot more sophisticated, but now they're the Orcs, and they're not sophisticated.
Ah, okay. So we're
Yeah.
just like, so orcs are kind of just an alien species essentially.
Yep. They're fungus, but yeah.
They're fungus.
Yeah.
Okay. They're technically
Next slide.
fungus. Interesting.
So, like this whole fight that they have is again super complex. People just talk about it in passing with like big implications. It's a ton of stuff. But the old ones were very scared of being locked out of the universe because of these pylons that the Necrons were making. So, the Eldar were physical beings, right? But they were pretty good at like magic. The old ones, the actual old ones, are kind of like transcendental beings, but they were good at magic and like math, right? But the Necrons, they weren't good at magic, but they were really, really, really good at math. And so they like, and I'm not even joking, they made these pylons that like project an anti-universe so you can't get it, and like make the veil really strong so you can't get into the universe, like through the webway and the warp. And the Necrons are like, yeah, we're kind of winning, but we're gonna lock you out. And the old ones are like, no, you're not. Eldar, get him. And that's like the War in Heaven. And also, like, they fought demons together too, because like this was all like a plot by demons. So, yeah.
Okay.
Like I said, it's a clusterfuck. You should have expected this.
Yep.
Next slide.
I feel like I'm gonna have to probably like re-listen to this stream just to like remember all the stuff that's kind of been talked about.
Yeah. So the burning one, which is a Catan, you can see him on the right, would burn a path through the webway. Remember the fiery chariots from before?
Yeah.
Like how the old yeah, he would burn a path himself, and now the Necrons can use the webway. They're called Dolmen gates. The Catan are manifestations of reality, by the way. They're like they're like literally Platonic concepts, but like way stronger.
Oh,
Like
great.
they're like reality's like living soul, and they each embody like a specific concept, but we aren't told of what.
Oh, so we don't know, like, say, like this one in particular
Yeah,
that's like right there, what he
yeah, we
is.
have no idea, but they are like they say it. It's explained every time, and like that's why the Catan. And we're next slide. I think I talked about in the next slide. Yeah, so the Necrons would eventually like team up and shatter the Catan. And it's like a whole poem that goes in now to each one is shattered because the Catan were being bitches. And they're like, all right, we're done here. And the reason why they're shattered and not killed is because they're fundamental aspects of reality. I'm going to let Luna in. Give me like 2 seconds here.
Okay.
I have to take out my earbuds, but I can still talk.
Yeah.
Well,
For those who don't know, Luna is one of Hashi's cats. He has 4 of them.
You're a fat kitty, Luna. All right. I need longer headphones, so I can just do that.
So is it kind of like the kind of like the Horcrux from like Harry Potter or something, where they have to like.
I never read or watched Harry Potter because I'm not transphobic, Surfbone.
Oh, okay. But essentially, man, there's a funny reason why you say that, but
yeah.
Either way, basically the Horcrux are just like splitting the existence of somebody among like a bunch of other items, and like they don't die unless you destroy all those items.
No, like basically they wanted to kill the Catan, but the issue is that the Catan are like fundamental concepts of reality. So instead of dying, besides one, they got turned into shards. You know how in like real life atoms are supposed to be indivisible, but they're not?
Yeah.
It's like that. Like if you break something down enough, eventually it turns into atoms. Here they turned into shards because they just got like.
Oh, okay.
One of them, the Nightbringer, who's like death, but like he's like literally the thing that every Grim Reaper is based off of, like in the universe. Cain fought him and shattered him.
Oh. Meow.
You hear her yapping?
Yeah, I hear her yapping.
Next slide.
Someone asked, so is 40K like up there with a Lovecraft mythos in terms of, in quotations, strongest fictional verse?
Yeah. Yeah, it was one of the verses that like required 1S to be made, yeah.
Meow.
What do you want? You're interrupting my lesson.
He's giving a class right now on Warhammer.
What's up, kitty? Yeah, so there's a Catan called the Flayer, or the Flayed one, whatever you want to call it. And it was completely destroyed. Like, it's the only one that is like stated to be completely and utterly destroyed. We don't know what he embodied or what he messed up by dying. But in his deathbed, he like made this curse on some Necrons called the Flayer virus. And those are flayed ones on the right.
Okay.
They basically become really bloodthirsty and crazy. It's kind of interesting. Next slide.
Someone's asking if it's like that strong. Why don't that many people talk about it?
Because the people who do talk about it and say it's strong think it's strong because they're doing like 10 Space Marines versus 10 like clone troopers or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And no one actually reads into the cosmology and stuff because it gets written off as like, oh, the warp is just galaxy sized. You know? Luna, shut up. Jeez. Next slide.
Yep.
Oh, or yeah, the orc one. Don't go again. So Necrons eventually go to sleep because they're robots now, and it kind of sucks. The Korks would devolve into orcs, and they would settle on this world called Ulanor or Armageddon, and that's like their home world.
Oh,
and then the Eldar would kind of just keep going.
So like the how do you pronounce that?
Krorks. It doesn't really matter. It's only mentioned like 5 times.
So they were like kind of just alpha, like orcs, and orcs are just the devolved version of them.
Yeah. It's kind of like Krorks are like Modern Warfare 2. Orcs are like Modern Warfare 2 2019.
Like what caused them to devolve as a species?
The old ones weren't holding them up anymore effectively.
So like, are the old ones still around, or are they just doing something else?
No, they got killed off.
Oh, they're all dead. Oh, okay.
Yeah, they got killed off by the Necrons, yeah. Or Chaos or whatever. Next slide. So that's the Silent King. He's like one of the leaders of the Necrons. He got really sad and he left the galaxy. He's like, all right, I'm a head out. Right, Linus? Yeah, that's right. Next slide. So we're skipping around a bit. Human history would begin eventually, like millions of years later, right? And We get to the antics of everybody's favorite asshole, the Emperor, and the Perpetuals. Now, Perpetuals are like more evolved humans who are like immortal and all have like some special power, but like that was only ever talked about in like one book and never brought up again.
Okay.
Um, so basically the Emperor is also a Perpetual, and he's like, all right, but everybody's got to be a Perpetual because this shit rocks. And all the other Perpetuals are like, you sure about that E-money? He's like, yeah.
Yes.
And so he builds the Tower of Babel because he's like, you know what? The old ones try to catalog everything. I'm going to do it. And then some of the other Perpetuals were getting really ass blasted and destroyed it, which stopped his efforts of like decoding the Annuncia. And this is like literally the biblical story of the Tower of Babel, by the way.
And just to remind us, what's the Annuncia again?
It's like cheat codes. It's like the fundamental coding language of everything.
Oh.
So like if you said Surfbone, like Surfbone's true name, I would have like complete control over you.
Oh.
Yeah, we don't have an image of a Krork officially. People have drawn ones, but they're not, official.
So we don't even have the descriptions of what they look like?
Kind of. There's like bigger orcs, bigger, stronger orcs.
Oh, okay. So basically,
It,
people have their own like they've had their own illustrated interpretations of what a Krork looks like, but we only have like brief descriptions of what they look like.
yeah, and even then, it's like, does bigger actually mean size, or does like bigger, stronger mean like that's just like a phrase, right?
Yeah. Also, was like
Yeah.
the Emperor like one of the first humans or something? Like,
He's a very early human, but what happened was there were these humans called shamans, and they were all like psychers, but also kind of not really, because psychers weren't really a thing yet.
okay.
Um, because psychers are like a particular kind of human, but like that designation wasn't really a thing yet, and there are people who use psychic powers who aren't psychers. It's very weird.
So,
Anyways,
so there were humans that had like psychic powers before the Emperor came around.
yeah, and they committed ritual suicide to make the emperor.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay. So wait, how did they derive like these psychic powers from? Were they just born with them, or did something
yeah,
else
yeah,
give them that?
yeah. Or you're born with them, or like you use like occult shit, and you eventually develop like you can maybe like cast a spell or something.
Okay. Did they worship any type of other god before the Emperor?
N- no, they probably shouldn't have. There's like mythology didn't really exist back then, from what we understand, but like the emperor will still make like references to Gilgamesh, but it's kind of like implied that like Gilgamesh was the emperor,
Huh.
because like the emperor would like take up the role of very prominent figures in our history.
So why did they decide that they wanted to make the Emperor?
They kind of knew chaos was coming and humanity needed the protection.
Okay. So they created the Emperor as a result of that.
Yeah, and the emperor was like big strong.
Big strong E money.
Yeah,
And then and then
next.
and then he created like did he create the perpetuals or they just start getting
No, no, perpetuals naturally evolved from what we understand.
okay. And then he just started creating more of them.
Well, he wanted to. He wanted to get everybody to become a perpetual, and this is like the start of his big plan, right?
Ah.
And he's like basically like, we got to accelerate human evolution at all costs. But his first thing he tried to do was like decode the Annuncia, which they sabotaged him.
Ah.
Because like the Emperor's like, I want all the perpetuals with me. Like, y'all are kind of important. And a lot of them were like, we don't like you. You're a meanie.
You're a meanie.
Yeah. Next slide. Almost all of them are like, he's a meanie, besides one of them. So during the Middle Ages, like the Chaos Gods would eventually start waking up.
Oh, were they waking up because of the Emperor?
The Middle Ages,
Yeah.
other way around. The Middle Ages were because they were waking up.
Oh, the Middle Ages were well because it said I'm just reading the
Yeah. So
the first sentence where it said the
if
chaos
you
power since the
so
presence of
if
the
you
new
so
moon.
if you read it, Chaos was the first of the great powers to wake fully, and an era of war and conflict raged across the globe. The word "and" there, so he wakes up, and then an era of war
Oh,
rages across the globe. Zinch
okay.
wakes up, and nations and politics grew to adulthood with all the implicit intrigues and double dealings. Nurgle then wakes up and plagues, sweep across the continents. So by the end, and then Slaanesh still doesn't really exist yet, but kind of does because time, but doesn't. What about Urda? Yeah, she got really pissy at him too. We'll get to that.
Okay.
I was actually working on a video like that, but then I was bribed to do this stream.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, because making something like this in full takes like a big toll.
It's very soul sucking. It's not fun. Like I'm not like I'm obviously doing this for everybody and stuff, and I don't mind it. But like making the slideshow is very soul sucking. It's just I don't know why.
Alrighty.
Next slide. All right. So what about the Emperor guy? So during the Middle Ages, the Emperor would kick the Void Dragon to Mars and seal it there. That's literally what happens. Like he literally kicks it to Mars, and he's like, "All right."
The good old Boris kick and sends.
Yeah, he's like, there's a really good picture of it. I'll have to find it, but the Emperor just saw the I don't even know what the Void Dragon was doing on Earth. But the Emperor's just like, "All right, bring it, bitch," and he just kicked it to Mars and sealed it there.
I'm gonna see if I can find it while you.
I'll grab it for you. I'll grab it for you. Like interactive chat while I'm looking for it.
Okay. Oh, so this picture is the Void Dragon that you have.
That's a shard of the Void Dragon, yeah.
That's just a shard. Okay.
Well, the shards, like, they can look like however they want, right? Like, that's not like... But, like, that's how the shard, like, we know looks. He just got a model, like, a couple years ago.
Oh, so this is relatively new of what the Void Dragon kind of looks like a shard of him.
Yeah, and he looks like that in a game. I'm not going to spoil the game, because it's like a...
It's a good game.
Yeah, and, like, the reveal is, like, neat, so I'm not going to spoil it. If anybody spoils it in chat, like, your bloodline will forever be tainted by your treachery.
Yeah. So I guess while you're kind of looking for this...
I found the meme, by the way. I'm sending it to you.
Alright. Let's see this while I...
There we go.
Alright. You can see that?
I can see it on my screen. I don't know if you can see it on stream. I'll check in a second.
It should be. Yep, yeah, everybody can see this.
Yeah. Yeah, that's basically how it went. I should open up my mail.
Bring it, bitch.
Yeah, so he kicks it to Mars because he can. Then he teleports to Mars because he can. And he seals it there. And he's like, all right. In like 20,000 years, you're gonna spur technology on Mars. I'm gonna need that for my empire in 30,000 years. So you're gonna stay put. And he goes back to Earth and continues doing Emperor shenanigans.
Oh wait, so the Void Dragon is a Catan?
Yep, he is.
Okay. And basically the Necrons like were having this whole war with them.
Yeah, and like they sharded them, they were getting pissed at them, as you do. And then a shard ends up on Earth or something. I don't think it's ever clarified. Maybe the Emperor did just like fly off into space and just found him. And he's like, all right, let's go. But
someone said, isn't it because Cain kicked the Void Dragon in the balls and the shard went on Earth?
No, Cain didn't fight the Void Dragon. He fought the Nightbringer. Different Catan.
I'm trying to remember how to get.
Just click present slideshow.
Oh shit! No.
All right.
I guess.
Next slide. All right. So in about let's see. Oh, yeah. I think he went. Yeah. No. So this is the Dark Age of technology. So Dark Age doesn't mean bad. It just means we don't have records. So around M15, so the 15th millennium, which is what is that? 16,000. If I remember how millenniums work.
Mm-hmm.
Humanity would go and invent these things called STCs, or standard template constructs. And now there's a couple kinds of them, but they're all it's supposed to be one system, but there are different parts of it. One part of it is like a whole one is like this supercomputer thing that you can put anything into and it will make whatever you want. So let's say let's say you need a sword, Surfbone, but all you have is glass. It would make you a glass sword without you having to know anything.
Okay.
Or if you wanted a car and you just didn't have like copper, it would figure out a way to make it without copper to the best of its ability.
Mm.
And they also began making the men of iron and the men of stone. So on the left is a man of stone.
Oh, this little guy right here.
Yeah, he's a dwarf. He's a man of stone.
Oops.
And on the right is a man of iron. He's like a robot.
Okay, so they had these like things that can, these like pieces of technology that it's like, is it kind of like the workshop where you just kind of like build this thing and you have the materials and then it just builds that thing?
Yes, but even better, you could like feed it anything and it would like work it out if it could.
Okay. So
So like if
you
you
would just
fed
have
it
to
like
feed it like a blueprint of something, and then it'll be
yeah,
able
it
to
would
work
no,
on.
but it would have like a complete database too.
Okay.
But like these over time, these would get fragmented, and you'd eventually get ones that can only make one thing.
Hmm.
So like for instance, one of them is like it can only make a car.
Okay.
So imagine you find this like supercomputer thing, and it can only make a Ford Escort. Like that's what we're dealing with here.
Okay. Here, one second. I'm gonna try to.
Squat is the name. Yeah, squat is the name for dwarfs, by the way. The dwarf is a squat or a man of stone, rock and stone. I don't think that was intentional, but that's like the lore how it ended up being.
Nope, that's again not working.
All right, next slide.
Here, one sec. Let me. Oh, okay. So that's how it works. All right.
Yep.
It it was telling me what the command was for it.
Yep.
Right, we're on this
Right
one,
there. Yep.
and
Slide.
it said Control Shift. Oh my god, fingers, please. Nope, it did not.
Just click slideshow. Just like don't like just click the thing, not the arrow.
Oh, man, I was trying to do all that bullshit just for it to like.
Yep.
All right, give it. There we go.
Yep.
Next slide.
No. Yep. So humans looked about like this. This is like the type of armor and weapons they'd be using. This is actually a gangster from Necromunda. I know it sounds weird, but on Necromunda, like a gang has an STC. They just have it, and so they have like Dark Age stuff, and what that can produce is armor and weapons.
Hmm. Like, what's
Next
that?
slide.
Like, I see that it has like a gun right here. What is this supposed to be? Another type of gun?
It's a plasma cannon. I'm pretty sure.
That's a plasma cannon.
Yep.
And what's
The
this?
dwarves also have plasma too. So
Yeah,
like,
someone said something was like a name for dwarves is
yeah,
squat.
squat. So if you go back to the previous slide. The guy on the left, he's a squat or a dwarf.
That's a squat.
Yeah. Or a man of stone.
Yeah. What is this thing that he has right
It's
here?
this is armor. It's
Well,
like
no.
I would say it's like a decorative tabard that like hangs down, but
Okay.
so during the Dark Age, a very popular STC would be the Knight, which is used to like help construct and defend settlements and other planets. That's a Knight right there.
Oh, okay. So this is just a full-on robot right here.
Yep, you sit in a throne in it and it like bonds with your soul and shit, and you pilot it.
Oh, so it's kind of like what are they called from Pacific Rim?
A Jaeger, yeah,
Yeah,
but there's
Jaeger.
only one of you. And you don't...
Yeah, because that's kind of what it does, right? Is it like links with your mind and your soul, and then you move.
Yeah, and like psychers can't use them either. It'd burn them out.
Psychers. Oh, psychers can't use them.
Yeah, in my opinion, that's like GW's biggest mistake because like a psychic knight would be cool as shit, right? Like that'd be really cool, but no,
Oh,
they
so
can't.
wait, why? So why would they burn out?
The throne would just like interact with their mind, and it would just cause like a bad feedback loop, effectively.
Oh, okay.
Now the 40k Evangelions are the Eldar Titans, which I don't think I talk about because they aren't really relevant.
Okay.
But yeah, they're Evangelion shit too. Next slide. Yep. So AI is bad. If y'all didn't know, AI is bad. So in around 24,000, the Men of Iron would revolt. And you know the Emperor is like, all right, when I take over, AI is banned. But in the
Base.
future, the squats, the Leagues of Votan, the Men of Stone of the future, they would keep AI around because they didn't learn anything apparently. So that guy on the right is a completely sentient robot. He's called an Ironkin.
Oh wait, so this is a robot right here.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. And these are the guys
So
that rebelled against the emperor.
no, go back 2 slides. Another one. My bad. Sorry. The guy on the right is the guy that rebelled.
Okay.
That's a
So
man of iron.
yeah, and they're robots.
Yep.
Okay. And I guess that makes sense because they're not human, so they don't care about the emperor.
Some humans don't care about the emperor. Like, dwarves are technically humans, but they don't care.
Oh man, why don't they like the emperor? What did he
Well,
do?
they never really met him. Like, the emperor was still doing his shenanigans by the time they were the Men of Stone and shipped off.
Oh, so they shipped off to another planet?
Yeah, so like the Men of Stone were created to help like colonize other planets besides Earth. The Men of Stone, TCs, the Knights, all of that stuff was to help colonize like the galaxy.
Okay.
Like and then the Men of Iron Revolt was a big setback, obviously, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then next slide, I think I get into another big setback. Remembering the order. Yep. So warp storms in about 26,000, the year 26,000, warp storms would begin to plague the warp. And Terra, Earth, would be cut off from all of its colonies, which is where it got like its groceries from and shit. Because like they have to use the warp to go faster than light, that means that everything outside of the solar system was basically screwed. Because that Terra fell into strife, which meant that the solar system ended up falling into strife in turn. And abhumans would begin to evolve, which is dwarves are technically abhumans, but they were engineered. These two these two groups here are also abhumans. On the left, you have ratlings, who are small dudes. You know, they're the Imperial Guard use them as snipers. On the right is an Ogren.
An
He's
Ogre.
a big, strong lad, but he's kind of dumb.
So
The Votan keep AI because they treat them as living beings. Well, that's a mistake. AI is bad. The Emperor's right.
the AI are bad.
AI is bad. Next slide.
So wait, these guys are the result of
The warp storms would cause like mutations to occur at an increased rate, which would
okay.
yeah.
So
So and there are more varieties of abhumans. Like there are like so feel free to clip this, but like I don't really care. But cat girls are canon. Yeah, they're called felinids. They're like cat humans, but yeah, cat girls are canon. Yeah, there's loads of abhuman strains. There's a bunch of them.
Oh man.
They're like people who can like only really see in the dark. Like really tall people from like yeah. Next slide.
Oh boy.
Yep. So because the Dark Age, the Dark Age just means no records, right? But it's really the golden age of technology. We had like, and I should have said this earlier. All right. So 40K takes place in a galaxy, right?
Yep.
Well, think about if it took place on a planet, right? You'd have like a city that specializes in something. Or well, my bad. You go to work. You work at like a factory, right?
Yeah.
Well, in 40K, there's a factory city. Like it's a whole city of factories.
Okay.
Well, you might have an industrial city, right? Well, there's an industrial planet in 40K, and that's kind of the scale of things. So like there's a planet for everything.
Okay.
And one of those planets was called Fenris. And on this planet, it was supposed to be like Disney World, but for people who really liked Norse mythology, kind of. And when shit hit the fan, it was like Jurassic Park in that bitch. If you get my drift.
Okay.
Basically, the things that kept the scary stuff in the park broke down, and the world just became actual like Nordic apocalypse land.
Okay. Like what's
I'm sure
this thing right here?
that's a kraken.
That's a kraken.
Literally a kraken, yeah.
Okay.
Not the Kraken.
Just a Kraken.
A Kraken.
Yeah.
Yep.
Someone said, "So
Excellent.
my planet. I love Norse mythology." I guess you would
I
like
mean,
it.
in the same way, the guys who went to Jurassic Park really liked dinosaurs till the Rex broke out, right?
Yep.
Next slide. All right, so around the year 28,000, all the Eldar would that we know now would flee the Eldar Empire as the Eldar Empire births Slaanesh. And this big boom of Slaanesh existing clears the warp storms. All the Eldar gods barring Isha, Cain, and Shigorach are dead. Cain is shattered, Isha is captured by Nurgle, and Shigorach flees into the webway.
So wait, how did they die?
Slaanesh ate them.
Oh, so Nesh just ate them.
Yep.
Wait, is this Slanesh right here?
Yep.
Okay. So
Yep.
she was born. Her birth literally calmed all the warp storms. And then
Yeah,
she ate some of the Eldar gods.
is that image not official? I mean, there's official ones, but like I didn't want to have to crop it. So
Ah,
whatever, it works out.
okay.
Yep. Isha was captured by Nurgle and she's like being kind of tortured, but not really. Basically, because Isha is a god of life, and Nurgle like tests out his plagues on her, type thing.
Hmm.
Cain was shattered because he tried to fight Slaanesh and lost. Shigorach also tried to fight Slaanesh and lost, but he ran into the webway.
Oh, okay. Look, is it bad if like what is like the Slanesh the god of exactly?
Excess. So like if you do a bunch of coke,
Oh,
that's Slaanesh. But also if you're a perfectionist, that's also Slaanesh.
huh. So excess and obsession, like.
Excess in any way. So if you're excessive,
Oh, okay. Now
yep.
that makes sense. Um, so someone said watch someone say would. Would it be bad to want to do it with Slanesh? Like,
No, no Slaanesh doesn't encompass that stuff too, but like that's like the very like that's like the thing people focus on, and that's why like I stay away from it. You know, it's kind of a lazy thing. Cain survived because Korn beat the shit out of him. No, that's not true. We have a poem that describes it.
oh, so wait, how would they come to that misconception then? That
Oh, someone probably said it, or like there's something that kind like because Korn did want Cain at the same time too, because like the same way Nurgle captured Isha, Korn wanted Cain because like war gods go burr. But Slaanesh also wanted them because Slaanesh is technically an Eldar god, and she wanted to eat the whole pantheon. And so like they're kind of getting into an argument with it. But also Cain tried to fight Slaanesh and literally got sharded.
okay. So wait, what? How did the creation of Slanesh even happen again?
The Eldar Empire was a post-scarcity empire, and they were a psychic race, and so it's fated they would eventually birth the Chaos God. And they just basically kept like doing drugs and coke and stuff, and over and over and over.
Oh, okay.
Someone said, I thought there was a statement that the Kraken had Tyranid DNA. There's statements like that, yeah, that a lot of like the kind of cryptid monsters are part Tyranid, but like I think it's the other way around. I think Tyranids are part cryptid monster type thing.
Hmm.
Next slide. Yeah, that's a shard of Cain. That's an avatar of Cain. That's basically what he looks like.
Okay. So instead of like them being called avatars, they're just shards of them.
Well, the shards are used. The shards are in a craft world, like they do a ritual and they make an avatar of Cain out of somebody.
Okay. Oh, so they turn somebody into an avatar, Kane?
Yeah, don't get me wrong. That's a big model. Like he's a big guy, but yeah, it's literally the guy's called a young king, and they bring him forward and they like slit his wrist, and then he turns into an avatar of Cain.
Okay, and is Kane just another god of war, essentially?
Yeah, he's the Eldar, god of war.
Okay. So what's the difference between him and Korn then?
Korn's a chaos god. Cain's not. Cain is like this like kind of tragic being. Korn is like this like eldritch storm of emotions that has like a billion different faces.
Okay.
It's really kind of a good way to show the difference between like a proper god and a chaos god, because Cain is very focused. He has aspects of himself that are very defined.
Okay.
So there's also like different beliefs. Like Corn has brass, Cain uses iron as like their like special material.
Okay.
So excellent. Yep. All right. So we got to talk about the different kinds of Eldar here, going from left to right. On the left is a Harlequin. They're clowns. I'm not even joking.
Got
Next, like
wait.
they're
Hold.
actually clowns.
Yep.
Like,
Just There we go. Just so people can see the clown girls.
yep. To the right, you have a Craft World Eldar. To
Wait.
the right of that, sorry,
Just so I can what's remind myself what's Craft World again?
we will be covering that in a
Okay.
second.
All right.
I have a slide for each one.
All right.
Then to the right, we have Corsairs or Outcasts. They're pirates. And
Okay.
then to the right of that, we have Dark Eldar.
Dark
They're
Eldar.
they're they're
Evil
kind of
Eldar.
evil.
A
Yeah,
little
they're evil.
meanie Eldar.
Yep. Next slide. I think we talk about Harlequins first. All right, so Harlequins, they're clowns.
But in space.
Yeah, they kind of guard the Black Library, which is a craft world. That was actually something that like was like I think it was always true, but it was something people kind of forgot. But basically, the Black Library contains like all of the knowledge ever type thing. But like it's also super secret, hidden. And the clowns follow Chigorach, who's a clown god, as you'd imagine. And
Wait,
they
say that
go,
again. Who's a
oh,
clown god?
Chigorach, the guy who
Chagorach.
fled to the Webway. Yeah. And so the Harlequins kind of go from Eldar to Eldar and like tell the stories of like the war in heaven. They put on plays, but they're also like really elite and they fight sometimes because like fate demands it or whatever. Like Chigorach thinks it's really funny.
Someone saying that your avatar is Eldar.
Yep.
Okay. Someone
Next slide.
he also said
Oh.
that Harlequins are also the only Eldars that can say the name of Slanesh and 100% be safe after that.
Yeah, basically, yeah. They Harlequins are kind of safe because like Chigorach kind of protects them in the webway and stuff like that. That is true.
Oh, okay. So even like invoking, like talking about their actual names, like can kill
Yeah,
someone.
like the Eldar are like bound to Slanesh. Like if an Eldar dies, they go to Slanesh without special protection.
Okay. Oh, so they become a part of Slanesh.
Yeah, like all Elder Souls are like fated to go to Slanesh unless you have some special protection.
Oh, okay. So if like I say another race that wasn't Eldar said like Slanesh, they wouldn't um have any problems.
No, yeah, it wouldn't really matter. You probably shouldn't because like every thought is equally real in the warp, but like yeah.
So is it kind of like how in like certain movies they try to avoid everybody learning about who Freddy Krueger is because the more that people learn about him and fear him, gives him
Yeah,
more
yeah, yeah,
abilities and more
yeah,
power.
yeah, basically like that, yep. Except
Okay.
for the difference is that even if none of the Eldar ever even like think about Slanesh, the minute one dies without protection, that soul goes immediately to her.
Okay.
Next slide. So craft world, that's a craft world. Literally
Oh.
spacecraft world. Those domes are like so basically they follow a very rigid caste system to or path, not caste, but so they also use these things called spirit stones. Spirit stones basically are like a flash drive for your soul. So when they die, their soul gets sucked into a spirit stone that they wear on them.
Hmm.
And that's how they avoid Slanesh. But to
Oh.
av- to avoid being excessive or whatever, they follow a path system. So if you are a warrior, you are on the path of a warrior. And part of that path is like stuff like becoming an aspect of Cain. Like you're an aspect warrior. Cain has aspects. Um, like or like another path is path of the seer. You become like a magician, kind of like a farseer or whatever. And there's a ton of paths. There's like 12 of them, but they keep adding more because like it was never really defined.
Okay. Someone said
And they
the craft
oh,
holders are the only decent people in this setting. Not gonna lie, only people that will probably feel bad after killing you.
no, they won't.
Eh,
Eldred's doomed whole worlds to save like two Eldar before. He doesn't give a fuck.
He doesn't give a fuck.
No. Next slide.
Alright.
Corsairs, they're pirates.
They're
They're basically the
pirates.
same as Craftworld Eldar, but they don't live in Craftworld. So they just have big ships and they're pirates. Like,
Yeehar.
yeah. This is like one of those factions that like you can tell GW was really like hoping would catch on, but no one really cared because they're just pirates. Like they never did anything interesting.
Oh. So they're like, yeah, they're Corsairs. And it's like, well, what are they? And it's like, they're pirates. It's like, okay, so why don't you just call them pirates in? It's like, no, they're Corsairs.
Well, Corsair does mean pirate, but
Oh.
like that's like a real term. But no, what I'm saying is like GW is like really excited to always talk about them. Like even in the past when they were like making Battlefleet Gothic, which is like space battles.
Okay.
But they just never did enough with them to make people care.
Mm-hmm.
Next slide. Dark Eldar. So they went into the Webway, and they have this place called Kamarog. It's like this big city in the Webway, and they steal stars. By the way, I don't think I mentioned that. They literally steal stars to fuel their city.
Oh.
And and what they do is they actually like torture people, and like all this stuff to like basically fend off Slanesh or like fuel themselves. It depends what you're reading. So like I was reading this book, and like this Dark Eldar, I forgot what rank he was, but he was like a official or whatever. But he had like the space station, and what he did was he captured a whole planet's worth of people and just tortured them
Mm.
for just like fuel himself effectively. And Dark Eldar also have like uh they have like this gimmick where like they like have clones, and then there are people who are like born, like actually born, and there's like a big distinction there. So like some people are born in a vat, some people are actually born, and like if you're actually true born, that's like a big thing. You weren't made in a vat.
Hmm.
Yeah, the dark Eldar are very messed up.
Okay.
Yeah, they live in the Webway, by the way. I think I
Yeah,
mentioned that.
I like the hope you like the webway and BDSM.
Yeah, they whip people. They do drugs. Next slide. All right. So the Emperor would eventually make his bodyguard on the left there, called the Adeptus Custodes. He basically just reforges them, like he just like willpowers it.
He's
And
just
then
like,
eventually,
you are created now.
yeah, he like basically took kids, and he's like, all right, boom,
Boom. There it is.
yep,
You're my kids.
yep. And he also made the Sisters of Silence because he realized that runaway psychers are a bad idea. Next slide.
So wait, what are the people on the right here?
Oh, I just said that they're Sisters of Silence. Basically, they're blanks. So every human has a soul, right? That's in the warp. And if your soul is really big, you're a psyker.
Big
But
soul equals big power, big psychic.
but if your soul is so tiny, in fact, non-existent, and instead it's a black hole, you're a blank or a pariah. And because you don't have a soul, people feel really weird about you if you're by them.
Okay.
But also, it means that psychic powers are really hard to use around you. How does this affect Bo Shittle's legacy? It doesn't. He still loses to Hamzat. Anyways. Next slide. Alright, so right before the warp storm is clear, the Emperor starts making Thunder Warriors. Basically, he just, like, roided people up. And gave them, like, very rudimentary power armor. And he leads them to unite Terra, and he begins the Primarch project.
Oh. Okay, so we're getting
But
to the
something
Primarchs.
I didn't mention is that during the Dark Age, the Emperor would go off into space, and he went to this place called Molech, and he's looking for a soul to steal, because he's in a bind, and he's way behind, and he made a deal.
Hell
And
yeah.
he basically walked into the warp, and he's like, all right, I'm going to be a god one day, but I'm also not, because I'm opposed to those things, so I'm just going to take some power from you guys. And they're like, no, you aren't. And he's like, oh, but I did, and you can't do anything about it. And then he left.
It's like, but I just did though. Bye bye.
Yeah. But actually, it turns out that the Chaos Gods wanted that, because what the Chaos Gods do is they frequently give you power, so you like spread chaos.
Ah. Hell yeah.
Yeah, so it's like, hey, tell your friends where you got this from,
Oh yeah. It's like, oh no, please just do not tell people that you got this soul from the Chaos Gods.
But the Emperor didn't. The Emperor knew. He was like, all right, I'm actually never gonna tell anybody about Chaos. Get fucked.
Eh,
Next
no,
slide.
no. How could you not mention us?
So, the Emperor would
Oh
go to
damn.
Mars, and he's like, all right, like he would conquer Earth with the Thunder Warriors, but he'd go to Mars and he'd be like, all right, I'm making these things. I need help. And he goes to Mars, and the first thing he encounters is a knight with like a broken leg. And this like actually happens on page we see. He walks up to the knight and he's like, "Machine, heal thyself," and the machine starts like healing, like it's alive. And like at the time, these are like the cult of Mars, right? These are like machine cultists. They see it and they're like, "Oh shit, he's like machine Jesus."
Machine Jesus.
And the Emperor's like, "Yes, but there are no gods. But you can kind of worship me as like the machine god. That's fine." And they have a treaty, and now the Mechanicum is part of the Empire. Next
Oh, okay.
slide.
He needed help to make Space Marines and Primarchs.
Yeah. He needed the manufacturing base. Yeah.
On Mars, so they already kind of had their own civilization there.
Yeah. They were machine cultists. That's why the Emperor kicked the Void Dragon there, so they would become that.
Oh, so because the Void Dragon was kicked here,
Yeah.
this crew
They
got
would
created.
it would like spur the technological development. It's why Mars became a tech center.
So they're kind of grateful to the Emperor for having them
No, they
having
don't.
that.
Very few people know that, but the Emperor basically just he did the equivalent of walking on water in front of them. They're like, he's Jesus
Oh, like, and
or
what did
machine
he do?
Jesus.
What did he do exactly? Like,
A knight was like had like a broken leg, and he just walked up to it and said, "Machine, heal thyself," and
uh,
it healed like magically.
oh, okay. So he's just, yeah, Machine Jesus.
Yeah. Next slide. Yep, scattering. All right. So for a reason I'll cover in a video, which I was gonna make this week. The Primarchs are scattered. I'm still gonna talk about it here though, obviously. Um, so Erda, who's a perpetual, who we talked about earlier, was high key under the influence of chaos, but she was in denial because she's a woman and she would do like the ultimate woman move. So she goes down there. She goes down to like the Primarch pods, and someone who is sent back in time, I'm not joking, destroys like the shielding around them, and she opens a warp rift, and the Chaos Gods throw them across the galaxy.
Damn.
Because he didn't tell anybody about chaos, and he was being a big stinker.
Oh, someone said earlier that's like, so the Chaos Guards are kind of clout chasers.
Yeah, they are. They are.
Maybe they want the clout. Is it like they're also influenced by people knowing about who they are?
Yeah. Like if a lot of people like if you're thinking something, it happens in the warp. So if enough
Like,
people think something, it becomes true. If enough people are worshiping a god, they become big strong. But all the Primarchs were scattered, besides one who just ended up on another, like the other side of the planet, and that would be Alfarius there, who's never actually lost, so he was never found.
Oh, so what are exactly the Primarchs?
So the Emperor took that power that he stole from Molech, and he took bits of it, and he gave a piece to like this like he basically made perfect human beings. He was trying to emulate perpetuals, is what Erda says, but
Oh, okay.
and basically these would be like these godlike figures to lead the Space Marine Legion. So the Space Marines were made not from the Primarch specific, like directly from, but basically like with the reason with like they're made to be like lesser versions of the Primarchs, but also like general purpose. Because like the Primarchs were kind of hyper specific, but also not really because they were still like perfect being.
Okay.
Like imagine you took someone who was like as good as fighting as like Tom Aspinall and like as smart as like Stephen Hawking and as charismatic as like that one hot girl at fucking Applebee's that like you tried to talk to but she turned you down.
Okay.
And then you mixed all that into one person and then you also said, all right, but you're gonna be really good at trench warfare too. That's like a Primarch.
Trench warfare.
And they're basically like they're the sons of the Emperor. They're made from like the Emperor and like Erda is like their mother, but like the Emperor has mortal children too because the Emperor slept around a lot,
Yeah.
But also He like made children like the perfect way, you know.
Okay, so then what's like say like the difference between the Primarchs and then like these?
Custodians are like um they don't like have like a big soul. They're just kind of people with like special like magically made genetics. The Primarchs are this specific blend of magic and science.
Okay. So that's why
Like
he needed like Mars's help to like kind of
yeah,
help craft these people.
in every continuity. When I say every continuity, I mean like every iteration of the story, he always has a team of people helping him, you know.
Hmm.
Because like the Emperor's doing other shit while this is happening, you know.
Okay. So
The
he's not the
the
one
Emperor
like
is the Emperor is very smart, but he's not like omniscient, you know.
okay. So he's not so is he the one that creates the Primarchs or just do people
He
help him?
helps.
Okay.
Like there's like a team of people. It's like 20 people.
Okay.
You have like
So
Erda, who's like the mother. You have Amar Astarte, who's like the lady who basically made Space Marines.
okay.
You have like the guy who would eventually become Belisarius Cawl. We'll mention him in like stream 2.
Hmm.
Um, because I think we're already at like the 2 hour mark,
Yeah. Actually,
which is
we
about
just passed it. Yeah.
yeah, we're actually on pace for what I expected. So I'm not trying to go for 4 hours here.
All right.
Um,
So if I'm if I'm understanding correctly, so is it like are like the Primarchs kind of like say like Adam Warlock type people?
what do you mean by that? Like they're like
Like yeah,
perfect human beings.
yeah, perfect human beings that are constructed by their
Yeah,
race to be like the perfect person, essentially.
yeah, and like they're specifically made to be like aspects of the Emperor too.
Okay, and he's just like, here's a little my juice. Here you
Yeah, yeah,
go.
literally. Next slide.
All right.
So the Emperor would have his bodyguards, the custodians, which we talked about in the first deployment of Space Marines. That's them in Mark II armor, and that's what it would look like. It would be that color gray too.
Okay.
They had them slaughter the Thunder Warriors like they're like literally Old Yeller, because the Thunder Warriors kind of sucked. So
Like, what would you
next
say?
slide.
Like,
Oh,
if you were trying to compare Space Marines to Thunder Warriors, like, how would you like what
a a Thunder Warrior is like a sledgehammer. A Space Marine is a scalpel.
Space Marines like a scalpel?
You send Thunder Warriors like humans as like these like big waves of very blunt attacks. Space Marines like teleport in like 3 of them and get shit done.
Okay.
And they're also like really good at adapt. All right, so we got to talk about the creation of Space Marines because it's like actually important. So when I mentioned Amara Astarte. So there's this thing called gene seed, and basically it's like they have these 2 glands. Space Marines have 2 glands in them. One of them matures after a few years, and the other one's taken out at death. But the one that matures is used to make another. It's used to grow the gene seed organ to make another Space Marine. And so, like I mentioned, they made the Primarchs, but then it took a few years to actually develop Space Marine. And so part of that was figuring out how to make gene seed organs and then differentiating them for each legion, because not all legions actually use the same stuff.
Hmm.
And a part of this process is implanting a bunch of different organs into them. And here they're listed. You want me to just run through the list for you?
Sure.
So the first phase is they implant a second heart into them for what do you think a second heart is used for, right?
Hmm.
The second part is a gland that ossifies the skeleton and allows them to absorb ceramic-based chemicals, and this basically allows their bones to become stronger, and eventually their rib cage is no longer a rib cage. It becomes like this like flat interlocking plates, effectively.
Ugh.
Yeah. The third one is a gland that's inserted into the chest cavity, which is another hormonal gland that is also the base for other implants.
Yeah, it says like it stimulates muscular growth.
Yep. I'm not including the Primaris implants because they weren't made yet. Um, the fourth one is implanted into the circulatory system, which makes their blood more efficient at carrying oxygen. Pretty sure that one also helps with coagulation of blood, but I might be wrong.
Yeah, it says what's it says like enhances blood composition and efficiency.
Yep, yep. The fifth one is a liver-shaped organ. Is that liver-shaped? Yeah, liver-shaped, about the size of a golf ball. It's planted into the chest. Oh yeah, this is the one that helps heal. So it creates Larman cells, which when it's released into the bloodstream, it helps you heal faster.
Okay.
And it also seals wounds really fast too. The sixth organ is implanted into the back of the brain, and it controls their sleep and body responses to sleep deprivation. So it means that they don't really need to sleep as much, and when they do sleep, they can sleep very efficiently. Like they're not,
Okay.
The seventh one is like a pre-stomach that like filters stuff that goes into the stomach.
Okay.
The eighth one is it allows them that if they eat brains, they can like remember what the person like.
That's funny.
No, and this is really OP because Mortarion can do it, and he ate the brain of a non-psyker and remembered psychic stuff. Like it's actually really OP.
Weird.
The one after that is the multi-lung, and it basically allows them to breathe in low oxygen atmospheres and stuff.
Okay.
It also helps them like with toxic dispersal and stuff like that. The one after that is another one that sits at the brain, which it basically allows them to be like hypnotized and stuff for therapy and like to teach them, and this also results in their vision being way better. The next one is an ear, but it's like a wholly new ear. Basically, they just cut off their ears and make new ones, and they're way better.
Oh.
The one after that is a Susan membrane. Basically, allows them to go into cryosleep whenever they want.
Okay.
And this can be in trauma too. So if they got like blown up and they're barely alive, they can enter this state potentially and just be in
Oh.
suspended animation.
So it's kind of like an Odin sleep.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
They also have an implant that allows their skin to change color
Like
to
how?
protect them from radiation.
Oh. Oh. Okay. Okay, that makes
Yep.
sense.
They also have a they basically also have a another kidney, which basically filters their blood better.
All right.
They have something that enhances their taste and smell, so they can like track a target like taste like they're a bloodhound.
Mm-hmm.
They have an implant that allows them to sweat a substance, which basically allows them to fight in a vacuum without like a helmet on. They then have a gland that allows them to spit acid.
They can spit
As
acid. Space
Yeah,
Marines can
yeah,
spit
so
acid.
yeah, that one's famous. Like it doesn't work in a lot of Marines because as time progressed, it degraded. But like some can just spit acid at people.
Hmm. Okay.
And then what we talked about, there's like the gene seed, and then the final one is the black carapace. The black carapace goes under your skin and is these like black plastic plates, and it's what allows them to link into power armor.
Oh. Okay.
Anyone can use power armor technically, but when Space Marines use it, like their armor feels like their skin, so they don't feel like derpy because they're in big armor. It just feels like another layer of skin.
Oh. Okay.
But this also means that their reaction times in power armor is a lot better
Okay. Interesting. So their bodies kind of get more enhanced as a
by the
result
power armor.
by the power armor. Okay.
Yeah, like so for if like for instance, when humans use power armor, typically like asterisk, because like some people do have like neural implants, but most humans when they use it, they have to like move like you have to like try to move your arm, and the armor will react to you, right? It'll be like, oh, you're moving up, let's move up, right?
Okay.
But with Space Marines, their brain is telling the armor we're moving up, and then their muscles and the armor all move in one motion,
Okay.
and that's like all the implants. So we can go to the next slide. All right, so there are legions of space. So there were 20 Primarchs, asterisk, and there were 20 legions, each one for one to lead. But before they, like I mentioned, before they split the gene seed into different legions and made them like slightly different, there were Proto Astartes, which we see on the right. His name is Lee 2.
Lee too.
It's because he only had a serial number, and they like in the book the joke is they turned it into a name.
Oh. Okay.
Next slide. All right, now we get to go through the legions, and then that's going to be it for this stream because that caps off where I wanted to get to in the stream.
All right.
Because after the legions and what I talk about as the last slide, that's basically at the heresy. So it's like, we talked about that beforehand. So, so the Dark Angels, Primarch is Lionel Johnson. This was actually the first legion deployed against the Thunder Warriors. They have a unique 6-wing structure, which allows them to have specialists for just about anything. Their homeworld, where the Marine homeworlds are where the Primarchs end up landing at.
Okay.
Their homeworld is Caliban and has like a bunch of neat technology hidden in it. It's almost like a hollow planet, kind of. It's all like in that way. It's not unique. So you remember how I mentioned the machine cultists?
Yeah.
They weren't just on Mars. They were on other planets too. And one planet called Lucius, is actually a Dyson sphere with a planet on top of it.
Okay.
What that means is that, so you know how on our planet our core is just like molten iron and nickel?
Yeah.
Lucius is a goddamn star.
Oh. Okay.
And so they're really good at making plasma for obvious reasons, but...
Oh, so the core of their planet is literally a star.
Yeah, Lucius is, and that's what I'm saying. Hollow planets are nothing new. There are flat planets, because that's how crazy the Dark Age was.
Okay.
Caliban is kind of a Dark Age planet, but not really. It's one of those big things. And these are the Dark Angels. They wear black and kind of red and bones.
Like Lionel Johnson.
Yeah, yep. That's the same.
That's the name of the Primarch that leads this legion.
Yep. Next slide. The third legion is Emperor's Children. They're led by Fulgrim. So the Emperor was really impressed with them very early on, and he gave them permission to use the Emperor's Aquila, which no one else was allowed to use as like a symbol.
Oh,
they're perfectionists. They use
a symbol.
Yeah. It's kind of like that thing on his shoulder. You can kind of see it's gold there on his right shoulder.
This one, or this one?
Yeah, on the right shoulder.
Right here.
Yep. They're very good friends with the Iron Hands. They're perfectionists. Yep.
Okay.
They like a lot of these legions don't really get a lot of love till the heresy actually starts. I'm trying not to spoil shit. So
where's the second legion, Hashi?
Don't worry about it. Next slide.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, don't worry about it. Next slide.
I want to know what the second legion is.
No, don't worry about it. Next slide. Fourth is the Iron Warriors. They're led by Perturabo. They're siege specialists. Like, Perturabo's really smart. Like, he like plugs himself into a computer and stuff. They're really obsessed with like the idea of like the meat grinder. So like they're gonna be there in the trenches fighting, dying with their brothers though. So
okay. I'm really wondering what the second legion is about, Hashi.
We'll get to it. Next slide. Fifth is the White Scars. They're led by Jagatai Khan. They're really fast, like hit and run warfare. They have a lot of psychers. They're space Mongols. They're space Mongols.
Okay.
They do have like a lot of psychers, though, oddly enough. Next slide. Sixth is the Space Wolves. They come from Fenris, that planet we talked about.
Okay.
They're led by Lehman Russ. They focus on like seek and destroy, shock assault missions. Basically, they fetch and sick them because they're like dogs or wolves, right? They also have a lot of psychers, oddly enough. Despite their name, in fact, there are no wolves on Fenris.
Damn. False advertising.
There are no wolves on Fenris. Odd.
Damn. That's unfortunate.
Yep. It's kind of a meme in the universe.
Yeah, space Vikings.
Yeah, they are space Vikings. That is true. The seventh is the Imperial Fist. They focus on fortifying positions. They're led by Rogel Dorn. He was basically sent to like an ice planet, by the way.
Rogel Dorn.
Yeah. And they're so every Space Marine has like Space Marine Legion has like a headquarters. It's usually like a fortress monastery. And during the heresy or like the Great Crusade, as this would be, it was a bit more obfuscated because like the Primarchs were never really just sitting at home doing nothing, right? But they all had like a headquarters type thing, you know? And the Imperial Fists have this big space station called the Phalanx that's like the size of the moon. And these are seen as like the poster boys for the Heresy tabletop game as well.
Okay.
Next slide. 8 is the Night Lords. They're led by Conrad Kurz. They focus on terror operations and psychological warfare. They're basically a legion of Batmen. And Kurz himself was a psyker with like prophetic visions, but like he went crazy because of it.
Okay.
He has
Someone.
like 2 personalities, kind of. So
Oh, okay. Someone said recently when you said like, that cat girls existed, so do bat girls.
yeah, Batgirls are a thing too. Yep. No, sure.
Okay. And they have nothing to do with the bat
That,
Night Lords.
no, probably not. No.
Probably not.
There probably were some on Nostromo, which was the planet that Conrad Kurz landed on, but most like there aren't very many abhuman strains that are located on only one planet.
Okay.
Next slide. 9th is the Blood Angels. They're led by Sanguinius, who is a perfect boy.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, he's an angel. He's literally supposed to be perfect. He has wings. They call him the Angel for a reason. They focus on like aerial movement, orbital drop troops, and they have a lot of psychers as well. And they're also kind of like space vampires too, but that really wasn't a thing yet. So with the Blood Angels so every legion had a name before the Primarchs were reunited with them because the Emperor had to go and find the Primarchs.
Okay.
What happened was that the Blood Angels were actually called the Revenant Legion, and they were like bloodthirsty and really like degenerate. So Sanguinius basically redeemed them and turned them into like a premier fighting force with his like because he's perfect.
Okay.
Next slide. 10th is the Iron Hands, led by Ferrus Manus. They use armored warfare like tanks and stuff all the time, like heavy armor and stuff. They're obsessed with bionics. They like replace like their limbs with robot limbs and stuff.
Okay.
And
Oh, I see. I see there.
yeah, and they don't get that much love.
No spoilers.
Yeah, no spoilers. Next slide. The 12th Legion is the World Eaters, led by the Primarch Angron. They're melee. They fight. They're gladiators. And Angron demanded that everybody be implanted with these things called the Butcher's Nails, which it's like you had a taser in your brain that unless you were like angry and fighting would keep tasing you.
Oh.
Yeah.
So it's like I don't want to be a barbarian. I don't want to rage out. And it's like, nah, you will.
Yep.
You will embrace the barbarian.
Yep. So we had the 10th Legion, the Iron Hands, and we have the 12th Legion, the World Eaters. Next slide. 13th is the Ultramarines, led by Rabute Gilliman. They have a lot of numbers. And so they use like combined arms, very logistical warfare. They're one of the largest legions. The rumor is that they actually absorbed the 2nd Legion.
Oh.
Yeah, because so the 2nd and 11th Legion, which I said we would get to, were wiped from history. They did a big naughty, but also may not have. One of them is implied to be too psychic, and that's why they got wiped out. The other one was said to be a disappointment. So
Someone said blueberries.
yeah, they're blueberries. The 2nd and 11th were left blank intentionally because they're meant to be like what like you can fill in your own, but no one ever does. So, and Gilman landed on this world called Macragge, and he basically ended up making his own mini empire called Ultramar. Because like Gilman kind of actually had a mom, but also didn't, but kind of actually did. Like he actually had like supportive parents and stuff.
Okay.
Most of the other Primarchs maybe had like a mentor figure growing up because they didn't have the Emperor. But like they didn't like none of them really had like a proper parental figure, you know.
Okay.
Next slide. The 14th Legion is the Death Guard. They're led by Mortarion. They focus on like heavy infantry and like hazardous warfare, like using poisons and stuff. Like I mentioned, each legion was a thing before the Primarchs were reunited with them after they were scattered, and because of that, the legions were made from people on Terra initially. And then as they reunited with the Primarchs, they would recruit from the Primarchs' home world usually. And when this happened, the Terran Death Guard and the Death Guard who were from Barbarous, which is Mortarion's homeworld, they hated each other. It was like two completely different cultures. Like none of the other legions ever really had this problem. The Death Guard did though.
Okay. Do some of the games ever go into these other like legions ever interact with each other? Like I guess like the Space Marine games.
Kind of, yeah. Like a lot of the games kind of focus on like one legion or warband. We'll get into that. The legion thing is a great crusade like heresy era thing. After the heresy and stuff, they become chapters and warbands
Okay.
because they all kind of get broken up.
Someone said Mortarion is a shitty Primarch.
He's not. No, we're gonna get to one of the worst here in a minute. Next slide. Thousand Suns, Magnus, and no, I'm not talking about Magnus. Magnus didn't do nothing.
Magnus didn't do nothing.
He actually did. So Magnus the Red, Primarch, he landed on Prospero, and he's like a magician. He uses psychic warfare. They're one of the smallest legions because they all have this thing called the flesh change where they start mutating. But like Magnus traded an eye to try to stop it. So he's a Cyclops.
Oh, okay.
Next slide. 16 is the Luna Wolves, led by Horus Lupercal, who did not do anything wrong ever, and they focus on like decapitation strikes.
Okay.
So like they're like kind of like the spearhead, like they strike down, they try to take out the leader. They're one of the most successful legions ever, and like Horus was unironically a gangster before the Emperor found him.
People are saying that well, first I have Forbidden saying Magnus is literally Space Hitler, and then someone saying
No, he is not. He did not do anything wrong. Or
yeah.
when he does, we'll get to it in stream too. But
someone said Magnus did nothing wrong.
Yep.
The same with Horus, he did nothing wrong.
Yeah, Horus is more debatable, but we'll get it. That's stream 2 territory here. Next slide. 17 is the word bearers, and they're really the shitty legion. They're led by Lorgar. They just like holding planets, kind of, but it's because they like they're basically religious, but like they really shouldn't be.
Like, wouldn't they just be religious to the Emperor, if anybody? Or
yeah, but they were like taking way too long, like getting whole planets to worship the Emperor, but the Emperor didn't want that. The Emperor was like, "I am not a god. There are no gods. Stop doing it." And Lorgar was like, "He's lying. He's obviously a god, and he knows it. I'm going to tell everybody." Yep.
Oh,
Next slide.
about to like get into like the stuff that Horus did wrong.
Yeah. 18th is the Salamanders, they're led by Vulcan. They use flamers.
I like this armor. This looks cool.
Yeah, all of them are blacksmiths. Basically, all of them, like, they're artificers. They make like really ornate and like cool shit.
Yeah.
And because of the planet Nocturne they landed on, they're all like black.
Okay.
Not brown.
Black.
Like charcoal black.
Damn.
You remember the skin pigment thing? That's why.
Damn. Okay.
Like they're charcoal black.
Vulcan is a
Next
wholesome
slide.
guy, people are saying.
Wait, what are they saying?
Well, Forbidden said Vulcan is a wholesome guy.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he's one of the nicer ones, yeah. So the Raven Guard, they're led by Corvus Corax. They're fast attack special ops. They like stealth aircraft, and they're one of the smaller legions as well. Not as small as like the Thousand Suns, but they're pretty small.
Okay.
Yep. They're stealthy boys, kind of. Next slide. 20 is the Alpha Legion, led by Alpharius Omegon. They focus on sabotage and infiltration. They're very flexible. And they kind of all have this like I am Spartacus gimmick where they all pretend to be their Primarch. And their like motif is a Hydra. And so the idea is that when you cut off one head, like when you think you've killed the Primarch, you just killed some random legionary. And 2 more will show up.
Oh, so they all like act exactly like Alpharius?
Yeah, and on like a battlefield, like they all kind of will pretend to be a commander, and so like you think you've killed one, but it's just some random legionary.
Some like kind of like Doombot type of situation.
Yeah, exactly.
For those who don't know, Hashi a long time ago used to, his username used to be Alfarius Omegon or
Yep.
Alfarius Lives.
Yep. Next slide. All right, so so after the Great Crusade goes on for like not that long, and the first Primarch is actually found. The first one is found, mind you, because Alfarius was just chilling on Terra this whole time, hanging out with Malkador.
He was just chilling.
Malkador is like Malkador is like the one perpetual who didn't hate the Emperor, and so he's just like his right hand man.
Okay.
But Horus would be found, and he'd get to spend 30 years with the Emperor without any other Primarchs around.
Okay.
And so a lot of the other Primarchs later on would claim that like Horus got special treatment because of this.
Um. So wait, Horus wasn't the one that got the 30 years of treatment?
No, Horus right
Oh.
there, the guy on the right. Yeah, Horus got
Oh.
30 years, and other Primarchs later on would say that he got special treatment because of it.
Oh, because he got to be with the Emperor for 30 years.
Yep.
Okay.
I think that's the last slide. Let's see.
Yep. I can't click
Yep.
anymore.
That gets us up to like where Horus Rising kind of picks up at, which is like the first Heresy novel.
Okay.
So we're gonna call it there because recapping the Heresy would take me like way longer than this. But this got you from like before time to the year like 30,000. So
Alrighty.
that was a lot of history.
That was quite a bit of history. Again, I'm probably gonna have to re-listen to this stream back just to
Yep.
remind myself on what exactly occurred within this
Yep.
stream.
And there's like obviously there's a game you can play where you play as like the legions against each other during the Heresy. So
Yep.
which is right where we're about to pick up at.
Alrighty. Well, we'll end the stream here in like a bit, like say like 5 minutes from now. So if
We
anybody has some,
we can do like a little bit of a key. Oh God, we've been here for 4 hours.
well, now no, not 4 hours. It's been 2 hours and 26 minutes.
Oh, why'd it say minus 452 then? It's weird. All right, well, that's still a decently long stream. That's about
Yep.
what I expected. 3 hours, yeah, right
Yep.
about.
So if anybody's got any questions or whatever,
Yeah,
before we
we'll
end the
stick
stream.
around till it's 5:06 right now as I'm saying this. We'll stick around till 5:16, I think,
Mm-hmm.
and then you can put up otters on the screen or something.
Yep. I currently just have our avatars on screen right now.
Yeah. Luna, you're fat.
I'm just looking at all these slides.
Yeah. See, no. When I say the time frame, by the way, I say that to like establish the minute because all the minutes are the same largely. It's the hour that changes with time zones.
So what's the one like in Space Marines 2? What's that legion?
You play as the Ultramarines, but the enemy faction is the Thousand Suns.
So these guys.
Yeah, but they wear like different colors now. They wear cyan kind of.
Okay. Is it
Is it
true
true?
that the Blood Ravens are all kleptomaniacs?
Yeah, they have a bunch of relics. Yeah, that's kind of the joke. So the legions that would I'm trying not to spoil the heresy too much, but effectively half the legions end up betraying the emperor, and the ones that remain loyal eventually get split up into what's called chapters. Now, heresy legions had chapters too, but it was just like an organizational thing, right? But in the future, a chapter is like a separate entity that's only vaguely related to its parent legion. And even though, so go to like the Ultramarines, for instance. In the year 40,000, the Ultramarines still exist, but they're a much smaller force and they're a chapter. And if any Space Marines from 30,000 still existed, they would be a part of either the Ultramarines or what's called a successor chapter. And the Blood Ravens are a successor chapter of another chapter that we really don't know of. or of a legion that we don't know of.
Hashi, what? Fred says Hashi. What legion do the Blood Ravens belong to? Huh?
We don't know. People are saying about Yahweh. We know Yahweh's dead in 40k. Like it's outright stated to be.
Oh, so he's just not just a small dude.
No, he's dead. Fulgrim says that like all the gods of past mythologies are dead. Like Magnus at the Council of Nicaea literally reads from the Bible and everybody laughs at him. Like he's dead. Like
Okay.
actually dead. So and I'm glad too, because like there are people that think that like the Emperor would be Catholic, and it's like no. The Emperor was there when the Bible was written. He wouldn't believe in that garbage.
Magnus out here
No.
having a Skype calls with E-Money while everyone else is having an existential crisis.
Yeah, exactly. No, Olanius was not Catholic. There's actually a line where he directly says he doesn't really believe in like any particular god. He's like vaguely deistic. Which is like Olanius kind of believed a god made everything, but he's not sure if that god is like personal or anything, and he only really believes in it to like make his wife happy. I could send you the quote.
So wait, what?
What's your favorite non-human / Astartes name character? So it can't be human? I mean, I like Eldred a lot. He's neat. Isn't there a book where the Emperor destroys the last church? Yeah, but it's not a Catholic church. It's just like the last church in some weird religion.
So wait, which legion are the Blood Ravens?
We don't know.
Oh.
People say it's the Thousand Sons because it's a meme, but like it's just because they have a lot of psychers. But there are other psychic legions. Like it's not.
Okay.
Another popular one is the Blood Angels too, but for reasons we'll get to in stream 2 eventually.
Okay.
It's probably not true.
Oh, I've heard the name Sanguinius quite a bit. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Every Primarch besides Horus has a Primarch novella. Like if you open up another tab.
Oh, what why are we looking up?
Just open another tab. Go to blacklibrary.com. Yep, that one, top link. Yeah, you always gotta accept cookies. Are you streaming your screen, or are they just looking under avatar?
No, I am.
All right. So if you type into the search bar Primarch, PRIM, ARCH. Go. Oh, really? Didn't show anything? Oh, you typed in heresy. Take out the heresy.
Oh, just Primarch?
Yeah. There are Primarch novellas. It should come up. It's like a category of novella. Yep. So, see, there's Sanguinius the Great Angel there in the middle. Is that a Cypher novel? Yeah, Cypher's kind of relevant, but like Corax has a novel, Sanguinius has a novel, Vulcan has one. All of them have one besides Horus.
All the other.
The Lion has a couple because he came back, but so like Vulcan has one, for instance. If you wanted to read Vulcan's Primarch novel.
The Blood Ravens are the protag of Dawn of War.
Yeah, in the same way we were talking about who you play as in Space Marine 2, you play as the Blood Ravens in Dawn of War, but you can like recolor them just like you can in Space Marine 2.
Isn't there a meme about the Emperor meeting George Washington?
Yeah, he probably did. I'm pretty sure it's like a piece of stained glass that he has or something like that, yeah. But yeah, Black Library is like I said, it's the publishing arm, and this is where all the books are.
This is where you can find all the books.
Yeah.
Oh, they even have like some audiobooks.
Audiobooks? Yep. That's how a lot of people listen to it while they're painting.
Yeah, like some do, some don't.
Oh, Forbidden, I answered your question. I said Eldred. He's really cool. It's really neat.
Yeah, Forbidden. I'm just learning more about Warhammer. I don't know any of these memes whatsoever.
Oh.
I'm completely ignorant.
So like you can look up Vulcan, and so if you scroll up to the top, you can look up Vulcan with a K. VULKN.
Oh, I misspelled it.
Yep. And then this obviously shows like every book he's like mentioned in like when I say mention, I mean like the description. Whoops, scroll down.
Oh, okay.
See right there, Lord of Drakes. Click on that if you want to look at the cover art. Yep.
Oh, that's cool.
Yep. See, he's black.
Oh, he's black.
Like literally black too. Like not even brown.
Insane theory they are actually descendant of the Raven Guard.
Yeah, people say that about the about the Blood Ravens because they're psychers. Anyways, I gotta take a dump. I think we should call it here.
Yep. All right,
Yep.
boys. So that'll be the end of the stream for now.
Yep.
Though I think what we'll probably start doing is we'll have every Saturday be a a Warhammer like chronology stream.
Yep.
Well, I think that seems fair for everybody.
Well, it might have to be every other because like I still want to make videos myself and
Yeah,
like making
yeah.
slide. Yeah.
So we'll probably have like every other Saturday.
Or something like that. Yeah, we'll figure something out.
Yeah,
But
because
I'm gonna go shoot a deuce. So
yeah, because by the way, Hashi, if you guys don't know, has his own YouTube channel, which I can.
yeah,
1 second. Let me pull it
I'm gonna
up.
say bye to the stream now, but I'm gonna go shoot a deuce.
Okay,
So I don't spook
so
myself.
you can do that. Hold on, chat. I am just pulling up Hashi's YouTube channel just so people can check it out. Let me grab. That's funny. The first thing that comes up about Hashi is not even his own channel. That's funny. Here we go. And here, 1 second, boys. I am grabbing. So I just pinned it in the chat. That is Hashi's channel. He makes quite a few Warhammer videos. Some of them are even funny enough. He has some DSP videos on there, but he's now recently making more Warhammer content now. So if you want to see more of Hashi and him kind of just rambling about Warhammer stuff, feel free to check out in there. Who knows? Maybe on this channel we might do more of that after I kind of become more adept at learning this lore. But yeah, Forbidden, we could probably VC after this. But let's see here. So everyone go pay him a visit. Also, if anyone is a Warhammer person in this chat, feel free to join the Discord. I'll make sure to update the links in the description so that people can join the server. We have quite a few other people in there, including Forbidden, who's pretty knowledgeable about Warhammer. We're going to try to just have this be a pretty diverse channel. But either way, we're going to have more streams like this. By the way, if you guys haven't seen it yet, I recently uploaded a video yesterday about Sam and Dean Winchester from Supernatural taking on the Death Note and them being able to solve the Cura case. I put a lot of effort into that. I watched 15 seasons of that show to answer that burning question. Granted, it hasn't made a ton of views as of right now, but honestly, I'm just so happy with how the video just came out in every aspect that it doesn't really matter to me. But either way, go check out that video. I'm going to try to have some more videos be uploaded sooner. And I got a new editor who recently just edited that recent video. And I'm going to have him like hire him more often so I can get more videos out, especially at higher quality. But until then, thank you all for watching. Class is dismissed. Bye bye, guys.